to start?
We alive?
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the South Florida Water Management District Resiliency Forum. My name's Drew Bartlett. I'm the Executive Director here at the South Florida Water Management District. I appreciate everyone who got up early and made the trek here to the South Florida Water Management District. I know we have participation via Zoom as well, so very much appreciate everyone coming to us. Today we will have a number of presentations, one of them being our 2024 Sea Level Rise and Flood Resiliency Plan, the new draft, which we are releasing today for public comment. And so I'd please take the time if you to look at that, give us comments. They're very important to us. And as you can tell by the title, we're very much focused in our water management operations at the South Florida Water Management District when it comes to the future of Florida and resiliency. And as you know, we operate the Central and South Florida Flood Control System at the South Florida Water Management District, which a lot of communities tie into. That system is doing its job for essentially South Orlando all the way through down the East Coast, Central Florida and the East Coast to Miami-Dade. And it's about 60 plus years old, right? It's an old system, but it's worked, it's done its job. The floods, the hurricane floods that spawned the construction of that system basically dropped the same amount of water as Irma. And you didn't have the months and weeks of flooding that you did in Irma that you did when the 1940s hurricanes that spawned the construction of that system. But like I said, it's 60 years old. And so first of all, I want to sort of do a shout out to our field operations, field stations, who have maintained that system beyond its design capacity so that it can continue to serve the communities of South Florida. But it's like at the peak of its rehabilitation needs as we sit here right now. But in April, the governor signed Senate Bill 1638, which was a $150 million infusion into that flood control system, not only for its rehabilitation, but also to its adaptation to the changed conditions that we're experiencing now, that being the development and sea level rise, right? So we have more impervious surface around that flood control system, and we have sea level rise, that is impeding the management of the water in that system. And so it's not just our system, it's all of our systems, in whether you're on the West Coast, East Coast, or you tie into our system. So that's why this forum becomes very important. In South Florida, we have about 9 million people, about half the state's population. We really also have while we don't have half the state's geographic area, we have half the state's economy in South Florida. So the future of South Florida is critical for the state, which spawned the statewide investment into resiliency and into our flood control system, which is sort of the spine of a lot of flood control systems. So there's so much dependent on it. From south of Orlando, Osceola County, you have the theme parks, you have cattle country, you have citrus country, you have sugar country, you have vegetable country through the spine of the state. And then you have the East Coast where you have all the economies, including those community centers like Wellington and Davie and Hialeah that were built in the former Everglades, right? So the flood control is critical there. And then you move to the West Coast where you have the Big Cypress Basin flood control system. So it's very much at the center of our resiliency efforts, which is why we have forums like this, because we cannot do it alone. We absolutely depend on partnerships. We depend on collaboration. All of us in this room have collaborated on many things to try to make things ready for the future of South Florida, because it's a challenging effort that we have before us to adapt to those changing conditions. So I really appreciate everyone being here. Please, if you have the chance, take a look at our resiliency plan, give us comments, but do not hesitate to engage in this forum. So with that, I'll turn it over to Yvette for logistics and to start us off with this forum. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. To ensure we are fostering collaboration across the region, please make sure that you have signed in at the welcome table, and if you haven't, you'll have opportunity during the break. This meeting is being live streamed today. There will be an opportunity for questions after each presentation. Representatives from local, state, and tribal partners will have an opportunity to provide updates during agenda item number 9. Public comment will be taken during agenda item 10 from those present in the room. Thank you for attending today's forum, and now to you, Dr. Moran.
Thank you very much, Yvette. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here, all of you. Great to see you. Thank you, Drew, for the opening remarks. We have now Wes in the agenda, also giving us some opening remarks from the Statewide Office of Resiliency. Wes, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Am I coming through loud and clear?
Yes, you are.
Great. Well, thank you, Carolina. I spent quite a bit of time in South Florida last month around the time of the South Florida Ecosystem Restoration Task Force meeting that took place in Miami. And I just want to say with the help of Dr. Moran and Armando Villaboy, the Statewide Office of Resilience and the South Florida Water Management District put together a Central and Southern Florida flood resiliency tour that brought together nearly 20 individuals representing different local, state, and federal agencies to see the resilience efforts and needs across the system. We started the tour in Northwest Miami-Dade County at the western end of the C7 Basin to discuss projects in Miami-Dade County that were aimed at improving drainage infrastructure and outfalls, raising canal bank elevations, and upgrading culverts. Across the day, we also visited 3 DEP Resilient Florida funded projects, including a $15 million project to upgrade a local hurricane evacuation route and its stormwater system through Miami-Dade's Department of Transportation and Public Works. There was a $3.5 million project to replace the Andrews Avenue Bridge in Wilton Manors by Broward County. And we also stopped by a $350,000 project that has been completed to enhance stormwater collection and conveyance along an otherwise quiet neighborhood road in Dania Beach. We also stopped at 3 regional flood control structures that are being targeted for resilience improvements by the South Florida Water Management District and the Jacksonville District through the CNSF Flood Resiliency Study. The 3 structures included the S29 coastal structure in North Miami Beach, sits right along the coast and controls basin water levels throughout the C9 in northern Miami-Dade and southern Broward County. We stopped by this S33 structure in Lauderhill, which protects communities upstream in the C12 basin by regulating flows to the North Fork of the New River. And we also stopped by the S12 structure in Davie, which maintains flood control for the C11 East Basin via discharges to the C11 Canal and the South Fork of the New River. All of these structures are facing performance limitations as a result of sea level rise, and they've been tested by high inflows related to urbanization and recent extreme precipitation events. However, the S33 and S12 structures are also located upstream of significant infrastructure, including the city of Fort Lauderdale and Fort Lauderdale International Airport. So simple infrastructure upgrades done alone in a vacuum won't optimize the performance of the overall flood control system in these areas. As Governor DeSantis made clear in the bill signing for SB 1638, which Drew referenced earlier, that there were $150 million for the district to expedite necessary repairs and upgrades to the CNSF system. And that's because of the importance and the value the regional flood control system brings, which extends far beyond the Southeast Florida and the district itself. And the state and federal governments both have a real interest and responsibility to ensure levels of flood service protection for which the region has become accustomed are sustained into the future. I'm looking forward to today's updates and am confident that we'll gather the momentum necessary to move this important effort forward with all of your help and cooperation. Once again, thanks for joining and looking forward to all of the presentations and the dialogue from all of our represented communities here today. Thank you, Carolina. Thank you very much, Wes.
Yes, the tour was actually a great tour, and we will actually start my updates today with a photo of that day trip that we took here in South Florida. It was definitely something that it added to the conversation. Thank you for organizing this tour, Wes, and really bringing all the key stakeholders together for this important conversation. Thank you again for your welcoming remarks as well. With that, I will transition to our district resiliency updates. That's just a summary of the most recent efforts that we have been working as part of our Office of District Resiliency here at South Florida Water Management District. So happy to bring you some of the latest and greatest updates and information from the work we have been doing. So first slide, as I mentioned, our tour. Organized by West, Florida State Wide Office of Resiliency. It was a great trip. It was, again, I think West summarized all the key points of that discussion, but it was needed, it was timely, it was a very important discussion, and we got really good participation throughout the day to kind of emphasize again some of the key points, some of the adaptation needs in those structures, and again, reinforce the collaboration. I think the conversations that we had throughout the day really demonstrated how close we are working together as a regional agency, counties, and local governments. We had cities, counties, and the Water Management District throughout the day, along with federal partners too, including members of the task force, Ecosystem Restoration Task Force. So great day. Thank you again, Wes, for organizing this visit. I also want to take the opportunity to welcome a new team member. She's sitting there. Tarana Solomon just joined the District Resiliency, the Office of District Resiliency here at South Florida Water Management District. She really arrived at full speed. We have a significant number of projects that she will be leading. Those are mostly construction, implementation projects that we have been kicking off, so including design and one first I would say groundbreaking for one of the resiliency projects coming up soon. So happy to have her joining the team. Thank you, Tarana, for your work already in this initial, not even a month. And anyway, I'm sure you all will be hearing from her. She'll be one of the key contacts, especially on those construction projects that we are kicking off. Talking about the water and resilience climate metrics, the latest updates that we have since we last met early this year is the publication of the South Florida Environmental Report. You know we have been tracking metrics now for 4 years, really looking at our data, observations, identifying significant trends and discussing them. So a lot of the science is published here. Another successful chapter, we actually have 2 chapters, 2A and 2B. They talk about the water year and on those observed trend conditions. So excellent content. If you like to review the latest science on some of those metrics, the data, feel free to really enjoy this report. We also produce posters. The posters this year are awesome. I really like the format that they are putting together for those open houses for the SVR. So instead of just a big report, we do have this session that is organized along with our governing board meeting. So we have the posters that are summarizing the key information that we have in those 2 chapters and many others. But anyway, just adding the links here for you all if you want to look at that after the meeting today or later. We also have work being developed looking at sub-daily rainfall trends and drought projections. This is done in collaboration with the university and the USGS. We have been looking at extreme wet. I think we are all familiar with the work that we developed from anticipating those extreme rainfall conditions. We are also looking at the drought side now using same database, similar science, and we have results that will be coming published soon. We have already 8 data released from the USGS, and probably, I'm hoping on the next forum, we can also bring this information to you all. And we continue to collaborate on the enhanced NOAA tide predictions in collaboration with the UM. Last year was the very first year that we kick off this enhanced forecast. It was successful. We are bringing one more model. We used the American models last year. We are bringing the European models this year. Again, more data, more science for us to be able to be doing informed decisions. So the king tide season will start in August, so we'll be communicating with you all when we kind of have the latest results on this one. And we continue to collaborate on all those efforts with the Florida Flood Hub, and also working on a statewide rainfall projection that we have been working through the rainfall working group at the Florida Flood Hub. So progress, really extensive work being developed on this round of data and data science. With regards to the level of service, we have the manager of the water and climate metrics work just entering here. She's the lead, so Nicole has been leading. You probably have been in contact with her on several occasions. Thank you, Nicole. Okay, moving from the data to modeling. The latest updates from the level of service program are summarized here. We are kicking off the San Lucie, Martin County level of service flood vulnerability assessment and adaptation planning into one study. This was funded with DEP Resilient Florida funds. We are really excited to start this work. The modeling team is really working on modeling, initial model development. I think they just went to the counties, discussed existing modeling tools, finding ways that we can integrate to the local tools and regional tool. Anyway, good progress there. Again, great collaboration with the two counties. We have the level of service at Palm Beach County and Upper Kissimmee Basin underway. Both of those efforts were initiated at the same time, similar time. So phase one studies, so more on the flood vulnerability side. We are now wrapping up future conditions for the Palm Beach County and reviewing future conditions for the Upper Kissimmee Basin. For the C7 Basin, just wrapping up that area, C7, C8, C9 in Miami, where we have the coastal structures that were beginning design. We are finalizing phase two study just to, again, close this entire area there. We had a workshop, I would say a month ago, really looking at project alternatives, additional considerations in the basin that we might want to advance, along with the already identified enhancements at the coastal structure and canal system. We completed high-level cost estimates for all the Miami-Dade and Broward level of service phase one studies. At the end of those phase one studies, we do have what we call non-regret recommendations and initial project recommendations. So what we were able to complete was really high-level cost estimates, one more level of information, and this is one of the things we are bringing to the plan. Dave will talk a little bit about it later today. And we also added the same task to the ongoing level of service at Upper Kissimmee Basin and Palm Beach County. So we went up phase one with all those cost estimates, high-level cost estimates to those initially identified projects. And of course, just want to reinforce that phase two is needed to be able to validate and test feasibility of all those project recommendations and some additional ones that we might identify through phase two studies. Here is just a summary. This slide is a little bit busy. I want to apologize, but just the big message that we want to say here is that while we plan for those major investments in primary system, and I'm here pointing in green, the ones that we have been identifying as part of the CNSF flood resiliency study with the Corps. So really the Corps will focus on the most vulnerable piece of the system, the coastal structure, the primary canal. We are looking at a basin-wide strategy, understanding that there are additional projects needed. So the blue ones are examples of projects that we can find along the basin that will help us with what we need to propose in terms of reducing flood vulnerabilities more effectively in a basin-wide approach. So the main message from this slide is also to tell you all that while we continue to advance the CNSF flood resiliency study, we will be advancing the level of service studies to be able to really look at all the pieces, understand all the boxes that we need to check as we advance those infrastructure investments. In talking about the 2016 study, the CNSF flood resiliency study, team will come after me and later today, and we'll give an update, a little bit more detailed update. But in a very high level update here, what I want to say is just that we are coordinating a scope and budget update to what they call vertical team alignment. It's still additional funds that are needed to the project. So we are right now in this process of coordinating with SAJ and SAD, I believe, in Atlanta in headquarters to be able to properly fund the future phases of the study. We are planning a July workshop. That would be our next public engagement. We have been working on performance metrics that were identified in our previous workshop and really looking at how we can make those metrics together, put them together, compile, and have what we are calling total benefits. So what kind of benefits we are anticipating to get when we look at a future condition, like vulnerable condition, what are the benefits that we have in all those basins, and how we're going to tackle those basins. So really great approach. We got excellent input on a very wide set of performance metrics, so looking not only on flood damages, but really going ahead and looking at social, economic numbers, some environmental aspects, and also regional development processes too. We continue to coordinate very closely with the counties. The more we advance this study, we understand that's going to be more and more critical to work very closely with Miami and Broward, especially for the CNSF flood resiliency study. And coming next is the CNSF comprehensive study. Right now, what we are developing in collaboration with SAJ team is the implementation guidance. So WARDA 2022 gave the authorization for this study to start, but we are still working on an implementation guidance. It's one of the first steps. Along with that, we are, in parallel to that, we are reviewing a feasibility study cost-share agreement. That's the step that we as a local sponsor need to be able to accomplish, execute in collaboration with the Army Corps so we can kick off the study. And also we are looking at a compound flooding proposal that is being reviewed by ERDC right now. That's one of the modeling tools that we definitely need to be advancing to be able to support this study, a more regional tool. Just a quick glance, I don't want to get into details on this slide here, but just to give you a big picture of where we are now, focusing on the Lower East Coast there, Broward, Miami, on the 216 study on most vulnerable pieces of infrastructure, and then showing the area of the CNSF entire region there, the study area that would be coming, comprehensive CNSF study. And also on the left, in very tiny letters, it's our letter signed by Drew in support of the appropriation. So really asking for the funds that are needed for the initiation of the study in fiscal year 25. We don't have an answer on that yet. I'm sure the Corps can provide more details about it. So now we're stepping into our planning process here at the district. We're going to hear from Dave today on our 2024 update of the resiliency plan. So really, again, a very strong, robust document. We have brought some key updates this year to the plan. Excited to be here today after, I would say, extensive work on putting together this new information, new projects. Again, ongoing process every year as we identify those outputs from the level of service and other efforts like post-event assessments and things like that. We are updating the plan, and we have here one more successful year that we are bringing a new draft for your review. And we have been always counted with comments from 20-plus agencies, and we are really expecting that we get comments again this year. We are really, truly building this plan together, so we really appreciate the input that we have been giving to us throughout those years. Grant proposals, our word. We are working with the counties already for initial coordination of collaboration projects. We had meetings with Broward, Miami. I have a meeting with Lee County later this week. So really working to explore partnership opportunities for 2024. We are looking at Resilient Florida and BRIC, our two main project opportunities that we see, and also looking at other available funds. We continue to work on HGMP, disaster declaration funds, Florida Commerce, NOAA, and of course, looking at others. There is also FDOT funds that we are also investigating that we are hoping that we can step into that. We are reviewing some projects. We have a significant number of projects that we are working right now, really responding to RFIs. Those 6 ones listed here are from Hurricane Ian disaster declaration. We are working with DEM on those projects, really responding to requests for information since early this year. We are approaching, I believe, hoping, the end of this process of providing all the information, details about the feasibility of those projects, and really evolving on the project descriptions and details as we work with DEM. Really, we are super thankful for the work that they do and how they collaborate with us on really growing those projects from the initial concept to where we are today. And also working with DEP on Resilient Florida, we have 3 projects that were recommended for award earlier this year. So we are just getting documentation ready and waiting for DEP to providing documentation as requested by DEP to advance those 3 projects that were identified as part of the statewide flood resiliency plan. Now implementation side, I introduced you to Tarana. So those are really projects that we are moving into construction. We have 3 projects on DEP from last year that we executed agreements. We are already working on site visits, quarterly reports, and really finalizing the agreement with Palm Beach County, which is a critical one for the Corbett levee. So we are very close to really complete this last step on this project, on this important project. We are working with FEMA and DEM on the 3 projects that we were awarded. The good news about that is that the award packages were transferred by FEMA to FDM, the state, as early, I believe, last week. So we do have already the formal communication from FEMA that the awards were completed, and we are going to be working now at the state. We are sub-awardee to the state on that case. So we are working, again, closely with the DEM team to be able to complete this process and execute the agreements for those 3 big projects, S27, 28, 29. We are getting very close. Resilient Florida grant, again, we have a planning grant, as I said, Martin County and St. Lucie, so we are really finalizing the agreement on that side with DEP too. And we do have an innovative tech grant. We submitted the work plan. We are working very closely with Miami-Dade County team, Pamela and her team there. This is a very exciting project too, innovative technology that we are hoping to be able to implement and test feasibility along canal banks. Last list of relevant updates that we have is just we are working through the Silver Jackets effort on a flood risk modeling framework, like gap analysis. This was a proposal that was sponsored by the statewide Office of Resiliency and the Florida Flood Hub. We have the Army Corps, DEM, the Water Management District sitting there. We are advancing very interesting conversations. And we have an upcoming in-person workshop next week to really put those players together, define some of the key considerations that we want to have so we can produce this document and the major outputs from this effort. We have, as part of this discussion, we have been discussing and preparing a document about the importance of advanced H&H tools, especially for South Florida. We're going to have a presentation from McKean today, as in our agenda item number 5 on that. But it's really talking a little bit about minimal considerations that we need to have as we advance flood vulnerability studies in South Florida. Very key point, important point. And this is really a result of the discussions we are having as part of the Florida flood risk modeling effort with the Silver Jackets. And final point here, we will have a Resilient Florida update today. They were hoping to be here. We were not able to get all the coordination necessary for them, but we'll have the Resilient Florida update coming from the program manager. They are going to give us that as the first item in the round the table updates, agenda item number 9 today. So plug and wait to hear from them. They have grants opening again, so they'll come and talk to us a little bit later today. Here's just a slide of upcoming events that we have right now. We have the Environmental Permitting School, the AWRA Florida annual meeting, the Florida Resiliency Conference. We have a symposium on flood adaptation, the Southeast Florida Climate Summit, and I would say please share any additional events that you might know during the Around the Table updates. The links are there. Please feel free to follow. We'll send you all those slides after the meeting today. With that, thank you very much. Those are my updates from the resiliency program here. With that, I'm going to turn into Dave. We're going to really step into the plan, the major update that we have right now today. So thank you very much, Dave, for coming here, being with us.
Thank you, Carolina. Good morning, everybody. So I'll be presenting an update on the district's sea level rise and flood resiliency plan this morning. Our outline here for this morning is I'm going to kind of go over each of the chapters. I'll highlight new chapters, and then the plan will be released later this afternoon for public input. And we encourage you to please read it and send us comments. Have to start with recognizing our project team. We have a great interdisciplinary team that works on this plan every year to update it and to move us forward in our resiliency mission. The plan consists of 10 chapters and now also an Appendix A. So Chapter 9 used to have all of our priority project descriptions and cost estimates. And now, since they've grown so large, the document has grown so large that we've moved them to an appendix. So we have all of our project descriptions and cost estimates there now. So just a little bit about each chapter. First, our resiliency vision is to reduce risk while maximizing effectiveness. We always make sure that we have the implementation resources for project planning and management and to consider technical and financial challenges. We take into consideration future conditions, meaning population and land development, climate and sea level rise considerations. We also recognize vulnerable population and critical infrastructure in our vision to ensure community-wide benefits and protection of community lifelines. We leverage our partnerships with our stakeholders for public engagement through this resiliency forum and other outreach activities related to our projects. We also recognize the fact that ecosystem restoration, something the district does very well, is very important for resiliency. It is resiliency. Restoring and preserving ecosystems helps to build resiliency in South Florida. So also we have a focus on nature-based solutions, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. We like to incorporate nature-based solutions into our gray infrastructure. We have a chapter where we have a vision for an energy-efficient and renewable energy future by following latest building codes and offsetting energy demands. Chapter 2 describes the CNSF system and the Big Surface Basin system and the current challenges and limitations that we have there. We have challenges and limitations with population growth, land development, extreme rainfall events, and sea level rise. The capital improvement plan actually helps to build resiliency into projects. It's included in our ranking system. Status of capital improvement plan projects are included in our ranking system. And the capital improvement plan feeds into our flood protection level of service program, which you heard a little bit from Carolina about. So I'll just go over it real quickly. There's 3 phases to the flood protection level of service. And the phase 1 is flood vulnerability assessments to identify vulnerabilities in each of the basins. Phase 2 includes adaptation and mitigation planning, where we identify solutions to some of those vulnerabilities. And then phase 3 is implementation of projects through this plan, and that includes design, permitting, real estate acquisition, and finally construction. This chapter also has a description of a flood impact assessment tool that we use to calculate flood damages that helps us with our grant applications. So this slide shows the flood protection level of service studies that have been completed since 2001, and they're located in Broward and Miami-Dade County. And Carolina talked a little bit about these. We have a little overlap here. We also have ongoing and recently completed studies in Eastern Palm Beach County, Upper Kissimmee Basin, St. Lucie Indian River, and Loxahatchee systems, and the C7 Basin in Miami-Dade County. The results of these studies are now new projects that are included in the appendix of the 2024 plan. This slide shows the results for flood protection level of service for current and future conditions for studies along the East Coast, Big Cypress Basin, and Upper Kissimmee Basin. So you have, and these are draft maps, so they will be updated. Chapter 4, I think, is my favorite chapter about nature-based solutions. And nature-based solutions help to reduce risk by doing things like reconnecting floodplains, wetland restoration, bioswales, and many other different types of features that use nature to make our infrastructure better. We like to create projects that integrate the green features into the gray infrastructure in order to collect, store, and slow the flow of stormwater. Chapter 4 also includes a process for assessing and implementing nature-based solutions. We have a seven-step process. The first step is really just looking for available lands, then selecting and assessing features, nature-based features and related actions. Then we design the features, engage stakeholders at this point, because that's really important for project partnerships and for grant applications. And then implementation upon funding of the project with the nature-based features. We will be monitoring and evaluating the benefits of nature-based features, and if they are successful, then we hope to transfer and upscale them to the basin. There's also a process for evaluating the indirect, and direct benefits of nature-based features using performance metrics. And I wanted to highlight this project. I think is a really cool project that we're putting in for FEMA funding. It's the C9 Enhancement Project. The results of the FPLOS study in this area showed that there was a need for enhanced conveyance and storage capacity in the C9 basin. The forward pumps at the S29 structure are not enough under future sea level rise conditions to have the desired level of service in the basin. So when we start looking for where we're going to build a project and how we can use this, we look at the district's lands, and in this case, there is a 6-mile section of the C9 canal that had about 150 feet of right-of-way on either side of it. So the idea for this project is to create a linear wetland to enhance storage within the C9 basin and enhance conveyance capacity of the C9 canal. It includes constructing berms along the outer edge of the right-of-way to create a linear wetland adjacent to the canal. These features should create additional stormwater storage, restore floodplain connectivity, and interestingly enough, increase evapotranspiration in the wetland can actually contribute to a reduction in peak stage and flood duration. We also have enhancements to water quality and fish and wildlife habitat. So here's just the cross-section of the design for the project. We'd have indentations, there's an access road, there's a canal, there's the access road, and then there is the constructed wetland along the access road. The new wetland will be connected to the canal using either structural soil or low water crossings. And then here's a rendering that we had done by a landscape architecture firm showing what the project would look like if it was when it's completed. So we have the 3-foot berms along the edge of the right-of-way, the linear wetland, the low water crossings, connections from the secondary canals either into the wetland or into the main canal, depending on flow, and they're all represented in this rendering. Chapter 5 is about ecosystem restoration and ecosystem restoration projects that increase resiliency by reducing flood impacts, by protecting the regional water supply and storing water that can be available to attend to dry season needs. Also providing enhanced hydrology for environmental restoration efforts. Ecosystem restoration includes CERT projects that restore, preserve, and protect water-related needs of the region, including stormwater storage, wetland restoration, and water quality treatment. Chapter 6 is about water supply resiliency, and the goal is to understand and assess water supply vulnerabilities to future conditions. The chapter includes the summary of the district's approach to the water supply vulnerability assessment, and it also describes data sets that are under development to be completed this fall. The data sets will help to describe future conditions so we can plan for them. It also describes the district's goal of protection of existing water sources, developing alternative sources, and storage of excess water. Chapter 7 is about energy efficiency and renewable energy. The district is seeking to increase energy efficiency by following building code, also looking at potential for solar energy projects at the C44 reservoir. There are some pilot projects that we have scoped for a solar canopy in the headquarters parking lot, and also potentially floating solar panels on Lake Freddy out front here. So Chapter 8 is how we rank our projects. This year, there are no changes in the weights of the ranking criteria. There are some new things. Critical assets layer has been added to the FDEP statewide database. We're not expecting significant changes in our ranking, and we're also working on an automated GIS process. So the ranking is done using different criteria. The first criteria is the consequence of system failure. That gets 30% weight. Then there is project benefits through system enhancement. That gets 20%. And then there's a structure inspection program and capital improvement plan that helps to, that plays into ranking our projects as well. This slide shows project influence areas for the Big Cypress Basin, Upper Kissimmee Basin, and C9 basins. The areas of influence are created based on a basin scale approach using topographic elevations, flow directions, urban features, and engineering judgment. The size of the area of influence plays into the ranking of our projects as well. We also take into consideration disadvantaged communities when we're ranking our projects using a couple of different indices, the CDC and Council on Environmental Quality. And when that's all done and the spreadsheet runs, we get a ranking, and this is what it looks like with the higher priority levels at the top and the lower priority levels at the bottom for both coastal structures and other projects. So the two different tables. I already mentioned this a little bit, but the plan has been reorganized this year using a basin-wide approach. So there's one main project, which is like the basin, and then there are subcomponents within the basin. It helps to understand links between projects and components, and it helps to facilitate coordination with our stakeholders. And then, as I mentioned earlier, all of the project descriptions and cost estimates have now been moved to Appendix A. This slide shows how projects are entered into the plan, and that includes FPLOS Phase 2 studies. This is how they get into the plan, from a Phase 2 study, from a Phase 1 study, from event response, like responses to Hurricane Ian, capital improvement plan status, and innovative projects, sometimes also that sometimes result from grant funding requirements. We have new projects that were developed from FPLOS Phase 1 studies. Carolina mentioned this a little bit too. And there are 8 different types of projects that were developed from the studies. There's canal widening, canal bank enhancement, spillway, culvert, forward pump, and dredging, and distributed storage and storage areas. Now we have a total of 43 main projects in the plan with 88 subcomponents. Here's an example of one of the new projects. Increasing the canal bank elevations helps to provide flood protection during extreme rainfall events and by helping reduce the peak stages in the canal. Similarly, you have canal dredging, another example of how one of our new projects is described in the appendix. So this is to increase conveyance. We also have an open GIS project that's going to be linked in the plan this year. All the GIS layers utilized for the plan formulation and projects and rankings are made public. The open GIS project includes locations of main basin projects, major subcomponents, and respective project impact areas. The district's critical assets have been incorporated into the GIS layer recently released by DEP, Resilient Florida team, and that's important. So now that we're getting to more implementation, it's becoming more and more important to coordinate with our real estate group early. And so in the plan, we've identified a process for that this year. Early coordination to help evaluate land interests needed for a project. And that does a lot of different things. It puts us in a better situation for a lot of different things. It reduces the risk of delay, reduces the risk of cost overruns, identifies challenges early, and facilitates communication among the team. So this is just a summary slide showing Resilient Florida recommendation for awards, and Carolina went over these, so I'm just going to go quick. We have the C8 Basin Resiliency Homestead Field Station building replacements, S169W structure replacement and trash rake, and the Hurricane Ian disaster recovery grants that are under consideration now. There's 6 of them. 4 of them are in the Kissimmee Upper Basin, 1 in Big Cypress Basin, and 1 in Palm Beach County. And we've been responding to numerous requests for additional information for these projects since, I think, about January. So next steps. The plan's going to be released for public comment today, and you can just go to the link here you see on the screen. The deadline for public comments will be June 23rd. And you can submit your comments directly to resiliency@sfwmd.gov. And then the plan is due to DEP by September 1st, and the report is due to the governor's office by October 1st. And that's all I have for today. Be happy to take questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Dave. So we'll go around the table for questions. If anybody wants to ask anything or seek some clarification. Jim?
I have to push it down, right? You guys are sneaky. Great presentation, a lot of meat there. I love to see the energy piece. You guys keep going with floating solar. I want to try to connect this work to something that is probably one of the biggest challenges for our local governments and our constituents in terms of what's hitting their wallets. It's insurance. And it's another one of these, things is like the black box of modeling done by non-governmental entities that trigger things. Putting flood insurance aside, so what I think is a possible connection, and we talk at length with the reinsurance companies trying to figure out what can we show you that we do that reduces risk and loss so that your models can incorporate that and maybe bring back a savings or at least a smaller increase to what are exorbitant increases today. I don't know of another place in the country that is doing as much as you guys are doing, and dollar figure or however you want to produce it, but somehow be able to figure out how we can communicate that to this other group. So that together what local governments are doing, building codes, the whole thing, but everything from ecosystem restoration to the actual things you're doing to run the system, I think reduces risk and will reduce loss. That's what triggers insurance drive. So if we can think about that going forward, that'd be a huge benefit to local governments on something we don't have any control over. I mean, we would give it to the insurance industry and hope that that would have an impact. But I was watching all that. I don't think any place in the country could present that much investment as you guys have here. So that's my point and a question. Thanks.
That's a great point, and it hits home because I know at my condo the insurance rates doubled over the past two years. It's just crazy. Anyone else?
Good morning. Oh, I have pushed the button. I had a question about the equity considerations and using the CGEST maps and that slide. And so you said that it helps determine what to prioritize. Is that on a point system? And, kind of what percentage bump would that give if it scored highly on showing demonstrated need from an equity standpoint?
Yeah, it's part of the criteria for ranking. So I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know like the percentages or anything like that.
You
But
can go back to the slide there.
oh,
The slide shows the percentage.
it was one of the maps, right?
The list, so the list of the criteria that we have on that chapter 8, we
Chapter
have,
8.
yeah, the ranking criteria.
I'll get there.
Yeah. So basically, we got the points. The way we divided the percentages for the ranking was mimicking as close as possible the percentages that are assigned to the Resilient Florida program. So the same ranking process. So one of the criteria that we have is embedded in population and social considerations in general is embedded there. So we look at in each project influence area, we'll map any of those underserved communities. We'll calculate the percentage inside this project impact area, and we'll have a point assigned to each of those projects based on this social vulnerability. So it's 5% of the total points.
Okay, just to follow up. So if it's in the zones from those maps, then it gets a 5% increase in points.
Yes.
Got it.
5% of the points come from the
Yes.
social vulnerability
Okay,
index, yes.
thank you.
And then we have the total population that adds a little bit there too. But anyway, we have the social vulnerability. And maybe even the county adaptation action areas also have some considerations that overlap.
Nancy Gassman, City of Fort Lauderdale. I noticed there that you have county adaptation action areas as part of your ranking criteria. Do you consider the city's adaptation action areas?
We need to rename, the map has cities. Your adaptation action areas are all there, sorry. I need to rename the criteria there.
Thank you.
Hi. Could you go to the next slide, Chapter 9, and just speak a little bit more about the real estate question that you guys are considering? I think certainly at the county level, we're always pressed to reserve some of these lands for environmental purposes when we have pressing issues like affordable housing, for example, and kind of what stakeholders are you bringing in to have these types of discussions?
So you're talking about the new process that we have for coordinating with real estate, or?
I can respond to that a little bit. So,
Sorry.
Don't worry. So it's a new content to the plan. It's not a new process that we have. So we are just formalizing a little bit some of these steps. So at the very early concept of a project, we do investigate all the available lands and some of the opportunities that we have to be able to advance this project. So we have done that for 27, 28, 29. We did our investigation for potential sites. In addition to that, that's why we are kind of advancing level of service phase 1 study. So by the moment that we identify a vulnerability, like we understand that basin has a level of service that is lower than what we consider ideal. So we have those initial project recommendations and areas that we are flagging. So the goal is, let's look a little bit further on those projects. Let's do a little bit of a very conceptual design, and let's start coordinating with those real estate, with the real estate team early on. So what we are doing right now is way more title search very early on those initial concepts. They are not yet even a project, they don't have funding, but if we can do some of this investigation early on, we will be able to understand better alternatives, what we have, inform even the early design process, and really, again, as you said, don't lose opportunities, because what we are seeing, things are moving so fast that maybe in 1 year, we are already seeing things changing and us having less opportunity. Unfortunately, we have no control. We are not going to get all the funding at the same time. We are in the process of all of that. But yes, we are doing as much as we can the research and informing the design process.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Thank you very much. Again, we welcome your comments. Again, a very robust process that was put together, led by Dave here, significant effort from all the internal teams. I really need to take a second here to recognize all the internal teams that helped to be where we are today, one more time, and also our district resiliency team. I think everybody in the team spent at least the last month and the last week very absorbed by this process. So happy to be, really happy to be here today, getting into this step. Okay, we're going to move now to item 5 in the agenda. I'm excited to invite Akin to be presenting here today. We had planned this presentation before his new role. He is now our Chief Information Officer for the South Florida Water Management District and not leading the H&H team anymore. At the same time, we have been working on this topic for quite some time. He has been helping, of course, essential in determining some of the considerations that we have been trying to describe and put together when we plan for this presentation and informing the overall discussion that we have on this topic. So the first call I made to him when he accepted this new position was like, you're not going to bump this presentation, right, Akin? We're still going to make it to the forum. And he was committed to do it. So I really appreciate him coming here today. I was calling this his farewell presentation from the Age and Age. Not that he's not going to be involved in Age and Age. I'm sure he will. But anyway, I hope you enjoy a little bit of what he's bringing here today. There is a special touch for sure on this presentation, but again, very robust technical discussion that we are trying to advance here, and thank you very much, Akin, for joining us today.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and I think Carolina said it well. When I took on a new role since the last time, or since I first committed to give this talk, and I had made some slides, and I had to make some changes to them. Since also it's my farewell talk from my old role, into an IT-related role, I decided to take some liberties with this talk, including I leveraged a little bit of AI, and I'll ask you a question during the talk on that. And instead of using the traditional text slides, I thought it would probably be a good opportunity to use some graphics and give you something that will be memorable in sticking. I learn, I'm a visual learner. So first and first, I'll reintroduce myself. Akin Owoshina. I'm the Chief Information Officer at the South Florida Water Management District. And because this deck may need to stand on its own later on, I'll go over some things that you all know. We're the oldest of 5 water management districts in Florida. We've been around since 1949. And our mission includes many things, and for today's conversation, I'm going to focus on the flooding aspect of that. To accomplish that flooding or flood protection objective, we leverage the CNSF system. It's a massive civil works project built by the Corps of Engineers. Drew mentioned that, starting in the 1950s, and some of those structures have been around for 70 plus years. This slide kind of highlights the complexity of that infrastructure, but that's not all we manage. On the West Coast, we have a somewhat similar, though smaller system in Collier County, which is the big Cypress system, and it includes, again, miles of canals, dozens of structures, and pump stations. These 2 water management assets represent the primary system in a 3-tiered flood control system that helps provide flood protection in South Florida. The Corps of Engineers and the district operate the primary system, which needs to be adequately sized and operated to take stormwater from the secondary system run by local governments and 298 special drainage districts. That secondary system also needs to be properly sized and operated to take runoff and stormwater from the tertiary system run by homeowner associations, private landowners, and the such. So when you have systems like this, the question is, why is it important to include hydrology and hydraulics when you're doing vulnerability assessments? Drew mentioned that these assets are fairly old, 70 plus years, some of them are reaching end of life. The figure in there doesn't represent any one place. I hope it doesn't look like anything to anyone. It was AI generated, and it served a specific purpose, and I'll come to that in a minute. But when you support a population of over 9 million people, and their life and safety and property protection is a priority, and you operate in an environment that includes the Everglades and other sensitive environmental areas that you want to make sure you preserve, and you know that the secondary system and tertiary system are counting on you to be able to provide flood protection for those populations, you need to get it right. And that's what the level of service program at the district took as our guiding, the guardrails for the decisions we made. Now, a little bit to that image. The prompt I gave AI was, give me a hospital that is high and dry in an area that's flooded, so I couldn't use the hospital. And that's what they came up with. And I thought it was just perfect for today's conversation. It's important to get it right. So if the analysis shows that your hospital is high and dry but doesn't show that you can get to it, that might be a gap in your planning. So what are those factors that affect flooding? The volume of water and how it arrives does. It could be rainfall, it could be storm surge, it could be a canal bringing water from an area where there was rainfall into your area where there was no rainfall. It could be, as in many parts of South Florida, just water table being elevated enough to intersect the land surface. Any of these things could result in flooding. Also, how rapidly that water arrives. The same amount of rainfall spread slowly over a day may not create flooding, while if the same thing happened in 15 or 20 minutes, you could have severe flooding. So that's important. The conditions before the rain fell. 2 inches of rain after many days of rainfall may result in flooding, while the same 2 inches after a dry period may result in no flooding. It's important that whatever tools you use are able to discern and tease out this type of information in faithfully evaluating the vulnerability of your systems to flooding. The protected features that you have, some of them could be man-made, some of them could be natural. You're looking at dunes, mangroves, maybe berms and levees. That's important. If you have structures that can be operated, as we have in South Florida, that could be important. And I added this last bullet because while it's not a factor in causing or not causing flooding, it's great in looking at vulnerabilities. And that is the location and number of your critical or floodable assets, wherever those may be. There are many more, but I just thought this would be a good subsample to kind of start off with. And I'm going to look at, so how do we do this work? I'm going to use our experience, South Florida experience, and I'm going to generalize to some degree. A lot of modelers, including modelers here at South Florida, believe in the parsimonious approach to looking at flood studies. It's an approach where you use the simplest tool that's able to address the needs of your project with the level of accuracy needed for the questions being asked. And we often want to do that because it gets you quickest to your answer, but it has some risk associated with it. To simplify, you need to make some assumptions. And the key thing is to make sure that you don't assume away things that are important. And when I talk about flood risk assessment, I'm going to talk about really simple tools like bathtub models or enhanced bathtub models, a little bit more complicated tools that don't fully resolve hydrology and hydraulics. And while these may be useful, a lot of assumptions went into making them fast and simple. And the key is to make sure that you don't assume away critical pieces of information. For us in South Florida, those things could be groundwater or surface water, or the interaction between ground and surface water. It would be the coastal flooding type issues and the processes that drive coastal flooding, inland flooding and the processes that drive that. Slope is critically important to people who do hydraulics, and I had Matahel answer review this, and he was like, don't forget slope, so I didn't forget slope, Matahel. Roughness is important. The flood defenses that you have, your water management operations, the land use changes that occur, either between your historic development of the projects and to current date, as in the CNSF when it was built and today, or today and the future condition that you are trying to make your system resilient through. The future condition changes like rainfall changes that you need to look at. And that graphic, the second one that's AI generated in my presentation, is there for two reasons. One, I want to show the guy who's thinking very seriously about solving a rainfall-induced problem. And if you only looked back, he would realize he has a slightly bigger problem than a rainfall-induced problem. And so if he assumed no waves, no storm surge, he could be in for a bit of a shock. But the reason I actually use this slide is there's an error in there. I'm not going to let you look for it. I'm going to tell you where it is. This is not uncommon with AI. And if you look right above my marker, or just below my marker there, he has 3 hands. So we all love AI. It makes our job better, but we need to be a little bit careful. It does hallucinate from time to time. I thought I'll just share that. Okay, so I'll continue. So I said I'd do some perfunctory text slides, and this is the last one of those that I'm going to do. This is taking one of those things you can assume away, which is groundwater, and expanding on it a little bit. I'm trying to tell you that groundwater, especially in South Florida, is very important. The way your aquifers are distributed and the characteristics of those aquifers could be the difference between a very forgiving groundwater or a non-forgiving groundwater. If you're in Miami-Dade County and you have the Biscayne aquifer, you cannot assume groundwater away. Now, there are parts of Florida that you could be in, and you could make the assumption, I'm saturated, groundwater acts very, very slowly, but not in the Biscayne. And for those of you who know Biscayne aquifer well, I kind of put in this slide that I first saw. I think Obe used this about 15 years ago. This apparently is the core from the Biscayne aquifer, and it shows you exactly how porous that is. That is not porous media flow. That is pipe flow through the soil. You can't assume that away. So, with those out of the way, I'm going to use some pretty pictures and just talk around them. This first set of 3 images are supposed to highlight or emphasize the soil storage aspect. So what you're looking here is a typical cross-section. It could be anywhere. And you have a rain event occurring, call it a 5-year rain event, and you have soil storage, and you have some amount of runoff, and the system's good. The exact same system, sometime from now, maybe with high water level because of sea level rise or because it rained the day before, and you have less soil storage, and the canal's full as you'll observe from the exact same rainfall. And push this a few years down the road, and you have the change factor in the middle there, adding some more rain with lower soil storage, and you could actually have a situation where maybe your roadways may be flooded. Considering soil storage in many parts of South Florida, I think is important in being able to very well articulate or evaluate the risk to some of your assets. Our second set here talks about operations, and we leverage the fact that we know about soil storage in how we operate the system in South Florida. In the dry season, we hold the canals high so that they lose water to the aquifer, they help recharge the aquifer, reduces need for irrigation, does a lot of wonderful things. But in the normal wet season, we hold the canals lower so that they depress the regional groundwater, creating some soil storage. And in addition to that, when we anticipate an event, we could do an operation for a short period, not sustained, that is a pre-storm drawdown to create capacity in the canals to take flow. If you're going to do a good risk assessment for flooding, you should be able to incorporate these type of operations to be able to represent how the systems may respond. How about a traditional or simple bathtub model that intercepts sea level with the land elevation? If you finally make the decision on which of the sea levels to use, is it your main sea level, is it your high tide, is it your king tide, you have to figure out how does it intercept the topography. If it's a simple one and it just finds any area lower than sea level, you could have this picture, which could be right or wrong. But if you made it smarter and you said, if I have a levee, I'll stop at the levee, you could incorporate this. And again, it could be right or wrong. If you, for example, had a neighborhood that had a stormwater system that included a pipe to a low-lying area connected to your sea level, you could have this situation where you have flooding behind that wall. You need to be able to represent conditions like this if you're going to get it right. I did the same thing looking at it in a plan view, and I hope this works, but you have an area on the coast, and you have a little bit of water. The surge is still coming in, the tide is coming in, it's sustained, some areas get wet. Note this low-lying area indicated by the lighter green. When you have the next water level gets higher, that area gets wet. There's no direct hydraulic connection to that. Is that correct? Is that right? Maybe if you have the Biscayne aquifer, maybe not if you don't. You need to be able to tell between these two types of conditions. Eventually, things may get wet enough that it doesn't matter. It's connected anyway. But I thought I'll just show you this rock again, because it really could be the difference between how do I want to represent the system, and is my surface water really well connected to my groundwater system. So back to the cross-section again, and this time I'm going to take another thing. Often, many of us will assume away storm surge, and we'll say we're going to look at a system that's driven by rainfall. And so if you made an assumption that there was no storm surge, and you were wrong, this could happen. And that community that looked like it was not at risk really could be at risk. What if you did assume storm surge and you were right, and you just decided that you would deal with this because storm surge so frequently is more significant for flooding than rainfall, that you would ignore rainfall? And it did rain. Then what happens? You could have communities inland that end up being flooded that your analysis suggests would not be flooded. You want to be able to incorporate the boundary country conditions that are appropriate, like storm surge, but still look at different rain events. So what if you have assets? You have maybe an impoundment area, detention storage that you could pump to, and you have this situation. Well, you use those, and those communities that are inland may actually not be flooded. You need to be able to show operations and show the representation of features, defenses, assets that you have to manage flooding. One of the other areas that is important to be able to represent, and that hydrologic models would often let you represent, is changes in land use. The changes in land use affect a number of the hydrologic processes, everything from ET rainfall to runoff characteristics, infiltration, how water arrives at your different locations. A lot of us know about impervious surfaces and what they do to runoff. You must be able to represent things like that to be able to show the risk of flooding within your domain. I think the images you have there are from Miami-Dade County, and I could have picked up another county, but this was just dramatic and I had it. But 1940s to 2021, the extremely different landscapes you were looking at. There's a lot more impervious surfaces. And then the last piece, I'll just kind of use this image of the confusion corner to highlight the fact that operations could be extremely significant. For those of you who know our system, the confusion corner, the area I'm showing here, just kind of shows you the kind of flexibility we have in where we move water to. And where you move water to could really have a large impact with the flat terrain we have on how you manage flood risk. Whatever you choose to do, and whatever purpose, what tool you intend to use, our recommendation is that you make sure it's fit for purpose, that you know what processes are important, and that you don't assume those away. You know the time frame over which your work will be done, and what kind of changes you might need to represent. That you can clearly identify the assumptions you've made, and that the information that you have to be able to represent to answer the questions, and not some of the things that were not in your assumptions. And the last piece, which I always recommend to people, is please caveat your work with its limitations and use. Many times our documents are well presented and people with good intentions use it when we're not there. And if they don't have those caveats, your work could be misused. So what have we done with this in South Florida? The level of service program kind of took this approach. We wanted parsimony, we wanted to make sure we did things appropriately. And for picking tools, for any of our studies, we actually incorporate an active step in that project, where we look at all the data we have, we look at the things that are relative to that area, and then we go through this process. And where we've landed is that we pick tools that represent structure operations and water management. We have a lot of that in South Florida. We pick tools that can simulate groundwater interaction, surface water groundwater interaction. It's critical to flood risk in South Florida. We make sure that we can represent the important flood drivers. Surge conditions are in a boundary, sea level rise in a boundary, rainfall, different rainfall conditions are in there. We make sure that we can capture the hydrologic processes. Does the roughness in your canal or does vegetation change the profile of that flood surface you have. We make sure we can address changes that we can anticipate, including future rainfall and land use changes. And very importantly for us, because we know that we need to pivot quickly between doing a vulnerability assessment in many places and actually going into adaptation and mitigation planning, we pick tools that would allow us not just to answer the questions in vulnerability assessment, but will allow us to move quickly towards being able to answer the kind of questions posed when we're looking at adaptations. And we want those tools to be tools that we can build upon. So I'm going to take questions, and I kind of put this slide there. I don't expect you to read this, but I do expect you to read this document, which was handed out when I started talking by Nicole. I'll be happy to take questions if you have any.
Thank you, Akeem. It was a good presentation. I'm Eason with Martin County. I think another key point is the conveyance systems, even if you have a tailwater, because all those storm surge, sea level rise, and you may have a conveyance system, although may not totally submerge, when you add rain to it, then can impact everything back as well. So I think that's important. And I'd just like to entertain this question to the group. How do we get Resilient Florida to buy in that we need to be doing these H&H studies to show this? Because it's hard to come up with projects that are going to address area-wide benefits and reduce those risks if we don't have these tools when we're doing our vulnerability assessments. And I'm been a big proponent for this for a very, very long time. And I've gotten kickback from Resilient Florida for them not funding me to do use those tools. So how do we as a group relay that to them?
Thanks, Amy. There was at least one or two questions in there and a comment, and I had a speaking note for this that I didn't use, and I'll go to it. So if you look at this system, before I turned on the pumps, you had water level on the seaside, and you had flooding on the inland side next to it behind the structure. And this is not unusual. If the water level is high enough, such that the tailwater is higher than the water level within your canal system, you will keep that structure closed. And because you don't want saltwater moving inland. And you could end up with flooding inland, even though you have a structure that you're not operating. And so the idea of having a pump or flood pumps or features like that are some of the solutions that we're recommending with some of our studies. How do we get people to look at this? I think it's from talks like this where we explain the importance of representing those the hydrologic processes. Now, first of all, there is a role for all kinds of tool in doing all kinds of work. I think the key is to make sure that you pair the tool and the assumptions you make to the problem you're trying to solve. If you are in, I'm going to pick someplace upstate where you have clay soils and you have all kind of slope, and the only thing that drove how water moved was physics, then maybe some of these tools are completely appropriate. But in South Florida, especially South Florida, it's not only physics that tells you where the water moves. It's diesel and a pump station. It's where it rained. There are a number of different things that are not traditional or typical. And I think part of what we need to do is to talk to each other, identify the things that are important, and try to make sure we all kind of do the work right. I don't want to, however, discredit the use of simplified tools. We use them. For those of you who participated in maybe some of our studies with the core like low sum operations, I think many people talk about Pareto modeling and spreadsheet tools. You can screen, you can do a lot of work and get some value out of rapid tools. But you must understand clearly their limitations, and you don't want to advance to proposing solutions or assuming that you are fully correct without doing some confirmatory type tests. So I think it's just going to be ongoing dialogue and the ability to actually have tools in place. So at the district, when we do these tools, we share them on MMS, we make them available to folks who want to use them. I think that's the way I think we can approach this.
Any more questions?
Akeem,
Yeah.
so water quality.
Okay.
You know, I think I don't, the technical modeling, I trust you guys, but on the ground, what I see in the streets of Miami-Dade County, and the trends are interesting. So we want to get off of septic tanks because it's a water quality problem and gets into the bays. That means the local government needs a sewer system with a whole set of pumps and pipes. When it rains, our treatment plants triple in the amount of water they're treating. That quantity is stormwater that's leaking out of whatever the stormwater system is into the pressurized sewer system. So, and we're doing these for the right reasons, right? Water quality issues. But I wonder if how do we calculate all that? Because the local governments are looking at funding stormwater, through the stormwater utility program, which, it's not a watershed program. It's by political boundaries. Of course, it doesn't make any sense, but that's the way we do it. And we're trying to figure out sewer. And, they're not black lines. They're all coming together, trying to move water and the water quality of that water we're moving. And I'm hoping as we advance this, you can tell us, lay people, how we can think about those issues. Because an immense amount of money is going into these systems that are, in parallel, it seems to me. That's my observation. Thanks.
Yeah. Great observation, and it's a challenge we all have, and none of these are cheap. And it is one water. So the same things that make the stormwater arriving at the treatment plants triple is the interaction between, you have surface water happening, you have groundwater happening, you have features that you have in there to collect some of that water, or to collect some of that water that's been infiltrated by. So it's this very connected system. And I think the more you can develop tools that will evaluate the different processes, the better we could be at being able to quantify what you might need to treat in a treatment facility, what you might need to discharge of your treated water and where it might go, and what you need to do for flood protection. But it's this very connected system that we really can't simplify too much. It's a problem we're dealing with. Yeah.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I got one. The question or observation, basically, is what is between Miami-Dade County and you guys. But I'm from the city of North Miami, and northeast 3rd Court and 135th Street. We have a canal on 2nd Avenue. I'm pretty sure it belongs to you guys. And also, right at 135th and Northeast 3rd, there's a canal right there. But whenever we get heavy rainfall, Northeast 3rd Court is flooded to the point where sometimes vehicles can't drive down that street. So it kind of got worse over the last 2 to 3 years, and some residents blame it on development. But the question is really, I'm not sure who owned the canal by 135th Street, but I'm sure that the one on 2nd Avenue is South Florida Water Management. So basically, you speak about the rainfall and pumping stuff, basically. So who we need to contact to make sure the canal, basically, on 135th Street, that's right abutting 3rd Court, that it stay clean, and basically when you have every rainfall to make sure the water can flow and go wherever it's supposed to go. So that's the observation on the question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's from Miami-Dade, so he should know what I'm talking about. I'm not sure if you will pick up exactly what I'm referring to.
Yeah, I don't know that exact location, but your question is who within the agency could you work with to understand their operations and make sure that our systems are well maintained and managed?
Correct.
Yes. We have actually there are two groups. We have I'll try to get your names a little bit later, but we have a group that looks at the physical operation of our entire system. They maintain the canals, they make sure they are free of vegetation, and that they are functioning with sufficient capacity. We have programs for that. They can convey their design capacities. But we also have a group of water managers who look at the plans for operating the system that was developed by the Corps of Engineers and that we implement, that provides guidance on what levels we want to maintain the canals at, under what conditions. I showed you a slide earlier that dry season we want to hold them up, wet season we want to make room and lower them. There are levels that have been developed for that. And we also have those water managers that make informed decisions if we have a storm coming, if there's unusual rainfall. But beyond that, Dr. Moran and her team and the level of service team that I was on are doing studies to look at those areas, and I'm using this graphic to represent it, which may be inland away from the coast, close to a canal. There are projects you could do, local storage, something close by that allows us to better manage flood risk in some of those areas. Maybe somewhere to pump the water to during a rainfall event because we can't discharge it to tide, or the slope isn't enough to move it all out at the same time. So I'll be happy to get you names after the...
Akin?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
So I would start with the person right to your left, Julio. He knows all those people that Akin was mentioning, but he can come out, look at the area, figure out, and help connect it to what you're experiencing, to what's happening in the area with all the resources that Akin mentioned. So I would just exchange
Okay.
numbers with
I will do
Julio.
so. All
and
right,
you'll
thank
be
you
fine.
very much.
Yep.
Perfect. Thanks, Drew.
Excellent. You see why we need those forums sitting next to each other. Okay, so any more questions? Yeah?
So, Brandon Moody, Water Quality Manager, Charlotte County. I kind of want to follow up on a question from Martin, and kind of gets back to my feeling that this conversation, communicating the story of these models to the public is as important as this whole process that we've been talking about, because that's what's going to kind of get to the solution that you're trying to arrive at. And the thing that I struggle with every day in my role, in an administrative level, I have to communicate to my commissioners the stories being told by these so that they can provide a salient story to their legislative delegation to communicate to the state representatives who can actually make these necessary changes that we're talking about in terms of, for example, how Resilient Florida distributes their funds. And I think it's going to become more and more important trying to get tools together and coordinate and figure out how we tell these stories in a clear manner. Because it's not just talking through this process that you described, but to add an additional layer of complexity. In my neck of the woods, we have multiple local governments developing multiple different models, trying to answer the same question. And now I'm starting to spin up a task with my internal group to start looking at all of these models where they either overlap in their project boundaries or they adjoin to make sure that those stories are similar to one another. Because if they're not, and then we have to explain to the public and the elected officials why those stories are different, it's going to further muddy this. And my fear is further reduce confidence in the work if those stories are so dramatically different and we don't have a clear and salient answer as to why that's the case. And so trying to get ahead of that now, before these models get published and before these vulnerability assessments get published so that we've got all that lined up, is one of my highest priorities as far as this realm goes. But I think that process can also play into how do we have this ongoing dialogue and communications to really get across the need for what you're talking about. Because we have the same problem. Getting funding for the planning aspect of these mechanisms, for the tool development aspect of these mechanisms, is extraordinarily difficult. And there's an expectation almost that the local government should be on the hook to fund that. But when you're talking about a smaller county like Charlotte, or even smaller than us, some of our neighbors, that's a huge ask. So yeah, I think it's building. How do we further build out and coordinate on building out those communication tools to really make the story clear and really make it easy for our elected officials to communicate to the other elected officials the necessity for getting that support from on high.
This is such a, thank you for your comment here. I think you were right on target, and that's the reason we brought this topic to this conversation here today. Certainly, talking about all of those tools, it's complex, it's hard. We get people, like we get to a point, and then after that, it's almost like there is no more conversation, there is no more communication. So I think what you were saying here is key. One, we need to tell the story. We need to be able to really explain as much in a lay term as possible what we need to capture, what we are not capturing, some of those, but all the caveats, all the disclosure notes as needed when we are making perhaps a more simplified assessment for a reason, but really do not miss the opportunity to kind of present the limitations of a process and talk a little bit about the needs. I feel the state is making progress, significant progress. So definitely the conversation that is now being facilitated by the Silver Jackets process and the Florida Flood Hub is going to help on that. That's really the goal. And I know I'm biased being from a water management district, but we have been talking to the program from the early stages and telling them a little bit about tools that we can provide and talk. I mean, not only the tools, but the understanding on how water moves and some of the key assumptions that water management districts can really do right and help local governments. So they know, they incorporated that 2 years ago. They have added the opportunity for counties to partner with water management districts in flood vulnerability assessments, adaptation planning. So, I mean, the first one we got in here in South Florida is Martin and San Lucie, but this is a step forward. Like, we are sitting down, exactly what you were saying. They have their models, we have our models. We are still struggling. I'm not going to be, we know we are still struggling here because we have questions we want to answer, they have questions. We are committed to be building this link between what we have, so we have a consistent story. I think that's key. So anyway, I see progress, and we need to continue to push because this is important. Those are the right considerations, so we can really characterize the true flood risks, and we can then make decisions that are well-informed.
I'll just add one more quick piece to that. I think everybody said it well, and you're spot on with what you've said. The one thing that we've tried to do to start addressing this is what I mentioned earlier, that caveat your document and document your assumptions. And it's one of the more important things, because if you can't get to a consistent platform that shows the same answers, it will be important to be able to tell why they're different. And so we often will do a crosswalk. If we build a model in an area where other tools exist, we'll try to do a crosswalk between both models to say, okay, we did storm surge, you didn't have storm surge. We assumed that our canals will be operated, you thought we would be at. Whatever it is that is the difference is, we try to lay them out so that somebody who needs to make a decision isn't frustrated by the different things that have been recommended by two well-reputed people asking for funding to do something. So that's a critically important piece. And getting on similar or the same platform is really a great start.
And I want to thank Carolina, because we've been coordinating for a while since I've moved to Martin County, especially Sandy next to you with St. Lucie County, trying to make sure that we are able to develop something that makes sense for our region. We're collaborating together. We get all the pieces together. I know personally with me and my vulnerability assessment, which I just got a draft yesterday, I'm working with our cities in Martin County, reaching out so that we have those correlations together, that I'm not going to publish something that they're not anticipating, so that we're all together and we all understand and how we can work together in our next steps for climate adaptation. So for me, it's nice to have those more specific tools to really focus and target stuff. The stuff that we're getting now with the vulnerability assessments, they're just so broad, it's hard to really just target those projects. But luckily, I've been able to collaborate with South Florida and St. Lucie County and a lot of our internal stuff that we already have published, and be able to start really focusing on master planning that includes sea level rise, vulnerability, stormwater, and the water quality aspects, because I got the Indian River Lagoon, the estuary, and all that I have to deal with. So to be able to connect all those dots to make one comprehensive plan is what, I know it's a big task for me, but I think it'll be really important for our community.
Thank you all for the comments and the great conversation here. Any more questions, comments? Now we're going to have a break then, a little bit of break so we can stretch, use the restroom if you need right outside of this door if you don't know, and then we'll be back in Let's do it 10:50. 13 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We're going to start going back live, resuming the meeting. All the meeting is going to resume in a few seconds.
Okay, I think we're ready to restart. It's funny how the break flies by. Okay, so we're going to come back with wet season readiness. We have a presentation that is following up some of the discussions that we had in previous forums. So I hope you all can remember some of the points that we have been discussing with you. It's really our, I would say, since we start looking at some of the newest tools, I think it's the third time we are coming here to share these updates with you. And this, in preparation for this wet season, I would say that we are in a really good place, and we are excited to really launch some of those efforts that we have been planning in coordination with you all. So last forum, we share with you dates, and we open up the registration for trainings. So as I said, we have those tools that we have been using. The tools are a survey, like a crowdsourcing survey. We have a high water mark survey and a process, and we also have one more tool that we use to collect data. So the goal for those trainings was really to get your staff, our partners, up to speed on what we have, and again, make everybody more familiar with the tools. We had incredible participation this time from the counties, 121 participants. Of course, a good number here from the district staff, but great because we had district staff from all the different field stations, of like different service centers that attended the training too. So really getting this information out there, and people that are working closely with the counties too from our side. But yeah, 33 participants from counties, 21 from municipalities, and 16 from water control districts. Good feedback that we received from this training, excellent training team that went out there. We got emails, I would say, almost after each of the 9 sessions that were hosted here, saying thank you very much, that was great, I learned a lot, I'm engaged, I want to do this, please consider doing that. So really, really good engagement and really good feedback that we got throughout these training sessions during the month of April. So we continue to gather input, feedback. Feel free to send any input that you might have on really how to get those tools out there and further engage our communities. So this is just the quick image here from our main tool, I would say, the main engagement tool, the survey. We have here really, we're ready to really kick off this wet season with this functioning tool here, very basic, really any device, any tool, not a big deal. The training was just kind of to go through the steps on this tool here, but really getting the information that we need. A portion of that, hopefully near real time, we're building a process that we can bring this information to our water managers as soon as possible as well. And not only this, to inform the water managers, but also to document, to continue to better document those events. The more we walk through those grant applications, to the project justifications that we have, we understand that we depend on this information to justify those project needs, those investments that we are requesting. So we really hope we get good engagement this season, good participation. And we know there are tools out there. We are building a system that we can also come and collect data from any tool that is out there. So if you do have a tool, go ahead, continue using. We will make the link as needed. We have a few. But we also are offering our survey here. The repository is being built here too. So again, getting this information out there, collecting as more data as possible during those flood events as fast as possible. And of course, helping with the documentation as we advance through the events and through those storms. I want to just take a moment here to recognize the team that put together the trainings. So it was mostly geospatial and the survey and mapping team. We have Madeline Rinka, Diana Alvarez, Brian McEachern, and Kellen Weldon. They really were the ones who organized all of this with the support of the GIS team and manager too, Chris Carson and Nicole Cortez from our team. But I mean, they put together an incredible training. They went out there for all those sessions. So thank you very much for this, for really committing your time, your energy, your knowledge, and getting out there and sharing with all of our partners. So here are just the links. I know you probably received that several times. As we approach really entering the wet season formally coming up, I think we formally confirmed the beginning of the wet season earlier this month. So anyway, we are here. The links are here. So flood observations is very easy. www.sfwmd.gov flooding app. So any device, any tool, you can enter photos. If your photo has the location, that's basically it. You just submit the photo and we get the data and we can put a point in the map. To view the data, so that's a feature that we are enhancing more and more. So we have here, we share with you this South Florida Flood Information Resource link. So again, www.sfwmd.gov/flood-resource. So this is where all the data that we are collecting is there. We have a current event viewer where you can just focus on what's coming during an event, and we have a repository with all past events that we have been collecting. We got input from all of you. We built a very strong database from some of the reports that we were able to collect through last year. Again, incredible tool. We are adding functionalities to it more and more. There is a lot of data. It's even hard to digest, and we are bringing some very nice dashboard functionalities to this tool too. When you access this, you are not going to see all this. You're going to see mostly the database, but this is coming. We have a testing schedule for mid-June. I'm hoping that early July we'll get the full functionality, dashboard functionalities out there to help you to facilitate navigation through the data. But it's looking good already. We have the portal out there, and we have all the data that we collected so far, and the data that will be coming all there in this repository. Another link here is just, again, the very important, and I know our external affairs team that are seated here are the main carrier of this important message. When we are getting out there and we are asking people to collect information, we want to know who they need to really contact to address flooding issue. So if it is a major flooding issue and you need to contact a water manager to help you address this issue, that's the link to go to. This portal is not automated to send those notifications to local water managers. We are collecting data. We will act on things that belong to us, Water Management District. They will have access, so local water managers will have access to the data, but there is not a formal notification system between what we are collecting and water managers for any real response. That's a very important message here. So please, if there is any kind of urgency and you need to contact the water manager, we have a very easy map that you just type the address and you know exactly who you need to call. So if it's primary, secondary, tertiary system. So all of this complexity is streamlined via this local contact viewer. But again, the repository is out there. Anybody can access. Our local governments can access. They'll have full capacity to download the data at some point soon. So we're getting there, and we're building a very strong repository there. So we really count with their support to kick off this wet season with those robust tools and really engage your communities, everybody that can provide data to us here. Another topic that we discussed, I think, is the third time we are coming here. We had this discussion back in November, right after one of the major storms last year that happened along with a king tide event. We discussed again in January about this request for critical elevations. So it's a data request again. We are asking for data so we can have better, more informed decisions. So this is a summary of what was presented back in November here from Oakland Park and City of Dana Beach. So basically points in the city where they saw flooding linked to a kind of cause on system and performance so we can better understand and flag and understand thresholds. So The comments that were brought to us since then, basically from those two discussions and some follow-up emails, are really like, again, the simultaneous rain and high tide events. That's really one of the things, one of the reasons that we are seeing those stressors in the system, those antecedent conditions, reduced stormwater discharge capacities, limited stormwater capacity, exceedance of wastewater infiltration pumping. Is so funny because I feel all those points here were addressing the conversation before with Akin, but really like limitations that we have in the system and how we might want to respond and how we want to act now. So really the takeaway is we also will work to enhance like this integrated interagency operational response and collaborate on resiliency planning. So the request that was sent to you all back in January was this: send us the points, send us the data. We define what we were calling critical elevation. So the point that I'm referring to is a critical elevation in a location, specific location. So a primary or a secondary canal level that would exacerbate flooding risks within a drainage basin, within an area in your community. So knowing that this is not just street flooding, we are really working here on trying to understand like when those water elevations will be impacting finished water elevations, will be causing limited road access, mainly like evacuation roads and all of that. So we ask and we send a whole table to you all to get us this data, these critical elevations, associated durations, where is it located, what's really the performance issue that we are seeing on that location, and help us to read through the data. So we got extensive response, and I really want to say thank you all who spent the time to send us data, because we do have already a good amount of data that we collected. We had a meeting with the water managers to go through this data, and they were happy. They sent us some comments, but I mean, they are happy that they can zoom into an area, go quickly to this point, and understand some of the observations that are being summarized in this table already. So we got information from one tribe, 5 counties, noting that Miami-Dade County really provided critical elevations for most of the 30 municipalities in their response. So I would say 38 municipalities here if we count the ones in Miami, and 4 drainage districts. Some of the points are here in the map. We are still doing some cleanup. We have some questions. So basically, what we did so far on this data is to digest as best as we could what we receive. We are adding some questions. We're going to get back to you to be able to answer some of those questions that are coming from us, from the water managers. But they already have this information. We kind of provided this to them. They can start using as of now, and we will be improving as we go. Some of the data that came through these answers, we compile here quickly some of the impacts that were documented, from those thresholds is roadways, residential, commercial structures, really identifying the areas of impact. So they gave us the points and they said, this is a specific area of floods at this location, and I have these and these important commercial critical assets or communities inside this area. Talking about limited response capacity again, they really pointed to where in those thresholds, which ones are linked to this evacuation routes and things like that. They talk about points in the secondary system that they have reduced discharge capacity. So really a structure in the secondary system that will not operate or have very limited operation capacity when we have this certain level in the primary system. When we get to a point that we have submerged unoperable structures, and then also when we get to the point that we need to augment with some pump. So we have this data, it's looking good. We are going to be working with that. So basically this is what we have so far in the next step. So we'll follow up with you all. So expect to receive an email from us later this week, early next week. Those questions are compiled to you all. Please, we ask you, thank you again for your time, but we ask you for a little bit of your time just to help us answer some of those questions. Those are just clarification questions that we put together from the water managers so they can better read the data. And really, if you have any kind of data that you miss sending to us at any point, this is going to be an ongoing effort. We know we are going to be, as we kind of go through the data as we use them through events, I'm sure this database will be growing. And we are building it in a way that is simple, that we can just continue to grow and get more information as you have anything else to share with us. Again, on this effort to get us ready on the wet season, we have been also talking to the USGS floods, to the USGS team to get hold of some of the newest flood sensors that they have been testing nationwide. So 2 of the sensors are the ones that we're going to be testing. One is really a simple data logger. They call it small flood sensor. I have an illustration of one of the options here on the top. And the other one is what they call a rapid development gauge. This is the illustration that I have here on the bottom. So basically, what we did is we went through we have extensive data, water level already that we are measuring the system, but we do have some gaps. So we went through some of those gaps. We also look at this information that we receive from you all. Okay, critical elevations, this location. Where are some of those points that we might want to start reading better and try and test those new sensors? So we did, I would say 2 or 3 site visits already on those 2 locations. So a few locations in the Upper Kissimmee Basin and a few locations in the Lower East Coast, mostly Broward and Miami. We map 5 points in Upper Kissimmee and 4 points in the Lower East Coast that we're going to be deploying those initial sensors. Our plan is to deploy within the next month and test them through the wet season. The one point that this program really attract our interest is because during emergency events, FEMA does have a deployment process. They work with the USGS to deploy those sensors. And if we have the better knowledge, if we understand how those sensors work, if they're really tied to our existing system, we are really talking about like DB Hydro, we're going to be able to act much faster. And really, if we need to deploy more sensors during events, we have the capacity by just learning how they work, how they are installed, doing the tests that we need as a team. And again, using funding that comes through those if we need during those events. So again, this is not a extensive monitoring program. It's really a goal to understand better those flood deployments, those flood sensors, see how we can use this technology and map and use as needed during those events. So with the ability to do it faster. These are just some maps of those site visits. The project teams really went above and beyond to identify locations, work with the USGS teams on how they can install. A lot of great conversations and a lot of learnings even through this process of identifying those sites. So here in the Upper Kissimmee Basin, just a quick map on those 5 potential sites and really where they can be attached to. Those sites, sorry, I'll go back here one more time. Those sites are for the rapid development gauges, and they can be paired with the flood sensor. So the ability to get the rapid deployment gauge in the water body, and then pair with a flood sensor in a dry area. That's the goal. So you can kind of try to test a little bit flood extension as well. So the little device goes in a dry area, and this rapid development gauge stays in the water level to really measure stages there. Lower East Coast locations, that's the 4 locations that we have identified. I have 3 listed here, and we're pending just a definition of a location between those 2 points along C6. So we are wrapping up this. We are hoping that we can get this really, as I said, deploy within the next 2-3 weeks and have it ready for us during this wet season too. I mentioned about learning through the process. And something interesting that I discussed with our new Chief Information Officer is about how much data is out there that we are not having visibility to. This is one case. So when we first mapped this area in the South Broward Drainage District, Southwest Ranches, we said, oh, we don't know if the mound occurs here, what happens here. We were not having real-time visibility. And then that was one of the sites that we prioritized to install this rapid development gauge. When we went there to do the site visit, we saw extensive network of data that is being monitored by South Broward Drainage District there. So we initiated conversations with them to just get us the data. So, I mean, it's out there. They have a SCADA system. They have a process going on. So we have already a talk with them to get access. So, again, our water managers will be able to read whatever they're reading there, too. This is one case. I can list at least 3 other cases that we were able to just find data out there that we are really working to try to get access to this data. Again, it's valuable data. It's data that will benefit us. So if we can really build partnerships there to access this, the data is already being monitored. We just need to read it. So that's it. That's our basic information, preparation for this. Some of the new things we're bringing to the wet season this year. Again, those are the 3 main links: the repository, the survey, and who should we contact. I think these are really the key things that we need to get the word out. We need your support. We are not going to do direct public engagement. We really are counting with your help, local governments, municipalities, counties, to help us on this public engagement effort, getting the word out there, sharing those links. If you need any specific kind of language, a link, or any additional information that we can help you to get this out, please reach out to us. We work with you, but we really count with your channels of communication and direct engagement with the public to get the most out of that, really get people engaged in sending us the data, sending us flood observations, and really any other relevant information. So with that, thank you very much, and I will open up for questions if we have here before I invite Tim Geisen. So I'll go back to my seat. Yes?
I just want to say thank you for reaching out and asking the different drainage districts and cities where our choke points are, because at least at this point, you have that same information that we have when you are making decisions about opening or not opening gates. So thank you for taking the time to do that and seeing how it can integrate into your operations.
Yes. It seems so simple, right? The data is there. It's just unbelievable to think that we are not having the full visibility yet, but we are working, and thank you for the responses. We got incredible number of answers, and that really means that we are all committed to engage. So any more questions? Okay. So wait for our email. Just please help us to have some final clarifications there. The water managers were really happy to see what we got. So we got a very good feedback from them. Thank you again for all of you that gave us data. Okay, moving to the last presentation of today. We have Tim Geisen on the line. Tim, can you hear us?
Yes, good morning.
Great, good morning. Thank you, Tim. Thank you for joining us virtually. We're missing you here in person. I know this time is the first time we don't have the Army Corps in person here, but thank you very much for coming and talking with us today.
Oh, no problem. I apologize for not being there in person. I always like to be there live, not on video, but week has been pretty hectic. So appreciate you letting me call in and present virtually. All right, so I just want to do kind of a quick update on some of our ongoing or upcoming resiliency projects. I do want to just kind of reiterate, and everybody who's seen me give one of the resilience presentations before knows that most of the work that we do at the Corps really is our resilience support projects. So I'm not going to mention everything that we're doing, but just kind of highlight a couple of the resilience-focused ones that we're working on now. But if there are any questions on other Corps projects that are ongoing right now, please feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to provide an update on those as well. All right, so go ahead and go to the first slide. And I guess I should introduce myself. I always forget to do that, just for those who may not know who I am. My name is Tim Geisen. I'm the Senior Resilience Project Manager for the Jacksonville District Corps of Engineers. So essentially really the resilience point of contact for the district. All right, so the first project I want to kind of highlight is the ongoing CNSF flood resiliency study. I think everybody's pretty familiar with that, but that's been ongoing for coming up on 2 years. We kicked off back in the end of September 2022. We're focused, of course, on Southeast Florida and Broward and Dade counties. We've made quite a bit of progress in terms of the technical analysis since we started. Just to highlight a few of the most recent activities that we've held as part of that study. We held a PDT meeting back in March to review evaluation metrics. We've collected a lot of feedback from stakeholders up and down the coast, kind of highlighting things that are important for us to evaluate as we're looking at flood resilience. So that workshop kind of culminated a lot of the data collection and feedback that we've heard, and now working to finalize those metrics that we'll be presenting later this year as we talk about evaluation. Last month, we held a Future Without Project H&H modeling data meeting. For those who were part of that, know it was very data intensive. The modeling team has done an amazing job updating the Mike Hydro models that were prepared under the SPLOS effort and extending those out to the coast. And they recently completed the existing and Future Without Project modeling. In that meeting, they walked through all of the coastal structure locations and presented some of the kind of sample data that is available for the evaluation. A lot of hard work. I really want to give credit to that modeling team. They've done an outstanding job supporting the effort thus far. So since then, our teams have been working on the evaluation of that Future Without Project data. Our economics team has been working really hard on the FDA model, which is our main economics model, which supports the NED, or the National Economic Development Evaluation Metrics. So that's kind of the monetary benefit for the effort. That work is scheduled to complete close to the end of this month. They're tracking having that ready for us to start looking at. And then through the Water Management District's contractor, HDR, they've also been producing some other evaluation support metrics for our other categories that we look at, including the regional economic development, environmental quality, and other social effect accounts that we look at. So all of that evaluation is ongoing. We're going to be working internally with the district to kind of pull through all of that information and put our evaluation together to share with the PDT, tracking around sometime in July that we want to try to get together to go over what our evaluations are for each of these locations and discuss the prioritization of where we want to start. That kind of brings me to the other ongoing piece, and that's the development of our vertical team alignment memorandum, which you've heard us talk about before. And that's kind of how we get approval from our headquarters on the scope, schedule, and budget for the effort. And we've been working with them for the better part of a year, trying to get alignment on that. And as many of you probably are tracking, the Corps is really moving towards trying to get to incremental approach to some of these large studies to try to get to pieces of it faster, understanding that a large study, trying to do it all at once, can sometimes be cumbersome both from a resource and budget perspective, and may not get us to construction as fast as we'd like to. So we're working through, and this is kind of nationwide, this is happening, so we're kind of working through an interesting time. And one of the guinea pigs, if you will, on this incremental implementation approach. So we're working with the district and with our vertical team to try to get alignment on an incremental approach to this scope. Understanding how important it is and how urgent the need is to try to get things in the ground as fast as possible. So I think that's also where our collaboration, which you've also heard me talk about, across all levels of government and attacking the pieces that each of us can is really important, and that coordination and collaboration on something this large is important. That if we're attacking one increment of it, there's other complementary pieces that can be ongoing at the same time. So that coordination is ongoing. We hope to get alignment on that this summer and continue moving forward for the chief's report and getting construction going. All right, next slide. All right, and this slide is a new project that we just received funding for that I wanted to highlight. That's in the Shingle Creek Basin up in the northern Kissimmee Chain of Lakes area in the southern part of Orlando. This is one that's been kicking around for a while, and we were fortunate to receive work plan funds just a couple of weeks ago on this effort. We'll be partnering with Osceola County on the Shingle Creek Lake Toho evaluation. And really that was just authorized in the last WODA, a modification to it, I should say. So this was actually originally authorized in the 2020 WODA as an ecosystem and water storage project, and the WODA that was just passed last year modified that to include flood risk management, which is an extremely important goal in this area. So kind of the scope of this will really be to look at improving flood risk management and provide, where we can, ecosystem restoration benefits and water storage within the Shingle Creek and Lake Toho area. The unique authorization really is for all three of these, so it really allows us to focus on projects that provide comprehensive or total benefits. So where we can do things that provide benefits not just in flood risk management, but also in these other areas. It allows us to claim those economic benefits as part of our justification and allows us to really kind of look at comprehensive projects that can really benefit in all these areas. These may include actions to develop structural, non-structural, and natural and nature-based solutions as they can provide solutions to the issues that we're seeing in the area. So we'll look at kind of all of those things. For those who are tracking, and this is a problem all over South Florida, is the urbanization that has occurred since the 1950s and 60s has really changed the landscape that we're dealing with and changed the way floodwaters move and water is stored across the landscape. So trying to combat these changes over time is really going to be a focus of this effort. We are shooting to have a feasibility cost share agreement, which is kind of that initial kind of kickoff to the official start of the project sometime this calendar year, and then officially start off the scoping soon thereafter. And then we'll scope that out with the county and with the stakeholders in the area, and we'll come back and talk more about that as we get further down the road. Those are the two projects I wanted to highlight today. So I'll open it up for any questions that you may have on either of these two efforts or any other ongoing work. And I guess before I can open that up, I do want to highlight the Miami-Dade Back Bay team and the effort to get to the draft report that was just out for release. The comment period just closed on that last week, and that was a tremendous effort by the team from Norfolk in collaboration with us in Jacksonville to get that done. So glad to see things moving forward on that one especially. So now I'll open it up for any questions that you all may have.
Anybody in the room? Any questions? No? Okay, team, no questions here. Thank you very much for the presentation. Okay.
You are welcome. Hopefully we'll see you all in person next time.
Yes, of course, sure. Thank you, team. Okay, so we'll move to the around the table updates. As I shared earlier today, we will start with Krista from DEP, Resilient Florida Program. She'll give us an update, a quick update from her team there. Krista, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
It's a little bit low.
All right, how's this?
Yeah, still a little bit low. Maybe we can, is there anything we can do on our side to put the volume up? We're
Yeah.
checking here, Krista.
Yeah, we'll check, we're checking with IT, they're putting the volume up.
Is this any better?
Much better.
Yes.
Okay, I just changed to a different microphone. Always a tech issue. Well, thank you for having us today, and I'm excited to update you all on some of the Resilient Florida program stuff that we have going on. It is a very busy time of year for us, and this year especially, we are wrapping up the statewide vulnerability assessment that I'm sure everyone has been anxiously awaiting, and that will be done by the deadline on June 30th. So keep an eye out for that. That also will include a web portal for easy public access. We're also working on a refresh of the Florida Adaptation Planning Guidebook, which is kind of the how-to on doing vulnerability assessments and adaptation plans. That will be done around the end of June as well. Our application portal officially opens on July 1st, and that's for planning grants and implementation projects. And so that'll be open from July 1st through September 1st. But you can actually go in and draft your applications now. You just can't hit the submit button. That's been disabled. But that's giving people an opportunity to go in and see every single question, put in their uploads. Then we're also doing pre-application assistance where we can go in and review your application in advance and let you know things that might be able to be improved or any missing documentation, things like that. So that's something really exciting that we're doing that's new for this year. And we are right in the middle of our virtual office hours. We do those on Tuesday mornings and Thursday afternoons during pre-application assistance and during the application portal. They've been really successful at getting quick questions answered. But certainly if people need a little bit more attention or have very specific questions, they can reach out to us and we can work to schedule a meeting. And soon we will be announcing in-person office hours around the state. Last year we did that at 7 cities, and this year we're able to expand that to 11 cities. And that will be in late July and early August, with the primary emphasis being to help with applications. But we will have members from all of our teams there to assist with anything that the public needs, including grant assistance, anything like that. So that is just some of the stuff we have going on, and I'm happy to give the update today.
Thank you very much, Krista. Any question here from anybody in the room to Krista? Yes?
Do you know the 11 cities?
Ooh, that's a good question. If you give me 1 second, I can look them up. But off the top of my head, we're going to be in Pensacola, Apalachicola, Tallahassee, the Chiefland area will also be just south of Jacksonville, Orlando, Temple Terrace, Naples, West Palm Beach, Doral, I believe, and Isla Mirada. I think that's all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow, wow. Yeah, everybody's impressed here, Krista. Great. Any other question? Okay, let us know the dates. We're happy to support. I know we coordinated last year when you were in West Palm, so happy to receive you all here again.
We appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thank you. Okay, let's go around the table then. We start with our new guest today, new participant. I usually start on the right with Jim, but let's go. It's the first time you're joining us, right?
Yes.
Nice, welcome.
Well, it was very enlightening. The speakers was great. Information was great. So I learned a lot. I'm looking forward to communicating with this young man over here and looking for future ones. So
Great. Any
have a great
update from you that you think is relevant for us here? Just kind of projects that you were working on this messages from the city of North Miami?
Yeah. So basically, I work in the development service. So I'm more on the construction side when people get ready to build and they submit their plans, I review the plans. But because of I'm the flood officer, so anything to do with flooding, people normally reach out. So that's the reason why I mentioned the area that I mentioned, because that's like a hot topic. Recently, even at a council meeting, property owners always complain about the flooding, and they blame the city for the flooding, but some of it actually is out of our control. Basically, with the canal that I was speaking of, see who's responsible to maintain it and stuff like that. But overall, all the information basically tying into flooding and resiliency is very important in building as well. So, and I like the idea when they trying to tie in the swale, the impoverished areas and stuff like that. And that one guy's a question that I didn't ask was this: the C9. There's something about a 6-mile stretch where they plan to incorporate something on the side. I was kind of impressed with that. But the question: where's that located at? Anyway, that 6-mile stretch. Where was that?
You're talking about
There was a 6-mile
the
stretch.
canal?
The canal. Where
Yeah,
is that?
C9, it's along the C9 canal, it's Snake Creek? Snake Creek? Do you know the location of that main canal?
No, that's what I was
Primary?
wondering. Where was it? No.
So the discharge is, yes, okay, Julia will, Julia will give you all the information.
Yeah,
Perfect.
but it was great. It's great being here.
Yeah, Pickwick Lake all the way to the coast.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to actually switch the order. Going around, I know you have to get the train, sorry. You see, it was meant to be, I was the one who went to the wrong side. So, okay, let's just start.
I'm so sorry, and I'll let Jim give a broader update, but I just wanted to take a second to introduce myself. My name is Lauren Parra. I'm the new Miami-Dade County Chief Bay and Water Resources Officer. Some of you I've had the pleasure of meeting over the past couple of months, but I think to Charlotte County's question, a lot of our county mayor's attempt with my role, it's a little more expanded from my predecessor, Aurela Begay's role, is really trying to anchor a lot of the work that we're doing around water resources, even internally within the Bay. It's a resource that our residents and our general community have grown to not only love, but also appreciate. And so trying to tie a lot of the work and the investment that we're making throughout water resources to the Bay, we're hoping that it works, but I'll certainly keep you posted if it's a good storytelling measure. Thank you.
Okay, any update, Jim? Okay, I'll go back to that side then. Keeping everybody awake. No, thank you, Lauren, for joining us. Okay, I know it's the first time she's joining us too, so thank you very much for being here. Okay, Martin County, Amy. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. So last night I got my, I'm sorry, Amy Eason. I'm the environmental resource engineer at Martin County, in charge of Resilient Martin and our water quality program. And we just got our draft vulnerability assessment last night, so I'll be busy reviewing that along with your documents and the Corps' documents that I have to give comments on. So that's starting, so hopefully, I'm hoping by the end of the month, we will be in a position to start doing a huge public engagement campaign to show what our vulnerability assessment has given in results. And then we'll be moving towards our climate adaptation planning, which we already have a consultant on board for that. We are also very excited. Hopefully, by the end of this week, we will conquer the last RFI for the HMGP grant. I'm with you. For Mockingbird Lane, where we are raising about, I think, 0.6 miles almost, depending on where it is, from elevation 1.5 to elevation 5, depending. Local road, a lot of the people on that road have been rebuilding their houses already to higher elevations, so hopefully it'll go smoother, and we'll be starting construction of that pretty soon. So I'm excited, and the work that we're working on together is it's exciting to be able to collaborate across jurisdictions. So
Thank you. Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jackie May. I'm the grants administrator with the City of Stuart. Unlike Amy, I am not in charge of anything, for which I am grateful, but I do support all of our departments because we are such a small municipality. So with relation to things happening around the table, we at the City of Stuart are also responding to multiple RFIs for our Hurricane Mitigation Grant Program application for Hurricane Nicole funds, which was to request support for emergency generators for our lift stations around our community. We also have the dubious distinction, as I know some of you do, of being identified as a CEDARS community, the Community Disaster Resilient Zone. So we are working with our cohort to learn more about that, and I know some of the other communities at the table are also involved in that process. One thing we have learned is that with that designation, we have the opportunity to have possibly a higher ranking with BRIC applications and possibly a lower match requirement. So we have applied for BRIC technical assistance for various stormwater and infrastructure opportunities, and we are awaiting that decision. We are also working very closely with our community partners on our own Resilient Florida grant, which we received a two-prong funding for our vulnerability assessment, and then, of course, our ultimate plan. We're working closely with Amy and her team to identify and sort of map out critical assets. And lastly, perhaps of interest to some of you, we recently completed a project through our Public Works Department, which had been funded by the Indian River Lagoon Council for a living shoreline demonstration. And it's really a remarkable project. It relies heavily on natural components, and it's really something. So I invite you all to come visit us, take a look at that, or check online, or you can certainly email me and I'll send you the images for that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jackie. Yes, I got it right. I don't want to forget. Welcome here too. First time I'm seeing you. I can. Greg, thank you very much for being here.
Well, Greg Mount, Assistant Chief Resilience Officer for Broward County. Again, as always, every quarter it's great to come here and you put on such a great show and bring some great speakers in. So thank you. A couple things that we're working on. Hopefully in the next 30 days, we're kicking off our net zero plan, as well as an electrical vehicle charging infrastructure plan. And we're about to sign a contract for a risk assessment for contamination model project. So that'll be working with a new variable density model for contaminants subject to sea level rise, which is exciting. I get to go be a geologist again. I also look forward to, and I know the staff is going to look forward to reviewing the sea level rise and flood resiliency plan. It's always such a great document. We look forward to it each year, and look forward to receiving that later. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg. Is the variable density model with USGS?
That's a separate project. We kicked that off a little while ago. This is looking at five sites, 5 contaminated sites that will be impacted by sea level rise, and looking at what that would do to the surrounding area. We have a adjacent variable density sea level rise model with the USGS that's looking at saltwater intrusion, and that should be wrapped up in 2026.
Thank you. Okay, City of Boynton Beach, are you together? Okay.
Yes, I have to hit the button. So my name's Alana Irwin. I'm the Sustainability and Resiliency Administrator for the City of Boynton Beach. I'm accompanied by Michelle DeFreitas, my new Sustainability Coordinator. So that's one of my updates, is I have more staff now to help with some of our resilience projects here in the city. So I'm just going to talk about some of the more relevant things to the Resiliency Forum for flood control that we're working on. We have so many scattered projects going on. But one of the things I wanted to highlight is that we just recently completed our FEMA CRS reporting for the year, and we actually are on time and everything was good to go. So we're getting ready for next year's reporting schedule, our outreach program, and we're actually working on a species management plan to help elevate our score for the community. So that's one of the things that we're really proud of and really excited for working on, to really help our citizens get the best discounts that they can on flood insurance. Another thing that we're working on is we're doing some project scoping for some rain gardens or bioswales in our community. We have some older infrastructure and very significant troubles with flooding in our area. So we're trying to incorporate some nature-based solutions to see if we can help fix some of those areas to at least alleviate some of the drainage problems. We are fortunate enough to be one of the lowest lying communities in Palm Beach County. So while Palm Beach County does traditionally have higher elevations compared to our colleagues in Broward and Miami-Dade and Monroe, we have elevations that are near or slightly above sea level. So we do run into that challenge, especially with king tide, storm surge, and some of the other significant rainfall events. So we're really trying to get ahead as much as we can. So we're trying to incorporate some living shoreline features as well. So I'd definitely like to connect with you offline from the city of Stewart to learn more about that project. We're also working on a climate adaptation plan. We received a Resilient Florida program grant for an adaptation plan. We'll be kicking off in July. Very excited to start that. It'll take our vulnerability assessment and actually assign some projects for some long-term planning. So we're really excited for that. And lastly, we were selected for EPA's Creating Resilient Water Utilities. We're actually working on a climate resilience evaluation and awareness tool technical assistance that will be wrapping up next month. And we're hoping to incorporate this tool into future planning for our capital improvement for stormwater, wastewater, drinking water, so on and so forth, to help us identify the risks from flooding, saltwater intrusion, groundwater inundation, and really assign projects that will help us attack some of those climate issues very effectively. So those are a lot of the things we're working on right now in Boynton Beach.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Elena. Glad to see you again here, and welcome to the team here, Michelle. Yeah. Megan?
Hi, everyone. Megan Houston, Resilience Director for Palm Beach County. I'll start, and Paul can add on with the more science engineering project work that we have going on. We are finalizing our vulnerability assessment, looking at flooding and sea level rise, as well as other climate hazards for unincorporated in western Palm Beach County. We're going to be getting flooding hotspot maps from our consultants, looking at concentrated areas of critical assets that I'm reminded that we should be sharing with our municipalities, because we actually got county-wide data and not just focused on unincorporated, because GIS stuff is easier to just do the whole big thing. So whoever thought we could get more than we asked for, so this is great. Yes, it's a lucky occurrence, so that's good to share. And I'm talking with Alana about how we need to be coordinating and sharing that information. We're going to kick off a Resilient Florida vulnerability assessment for 6 of our smaller municipalities. We're thankful to Resilient Florida funding for that. We're going to be looking at new grant applications this round, possibly. We submitted something to NOAA last year that did not go through on a shoreline protection grant, looking at how our municipalities in Palm Beach County could coordinate on shoreline harmonization. I think something like 25 municipalities touch water, including our lake communities in the county, but we don't have coordinated approaches to nature-based infrastructure or living shorelines or anything like that. So it might be, we're interested in coordinating with a smaller group of Palm Beach County municipalities and the county meet together. So if you know of any other cities in Palm Beach County that want to be part of that effort, let me know. Shout out to Krista and the Resilient Florida Help Desk hours. Show up. You can ask. It's like so many really smart people on the other call, and you can ask questions about your past applications if they didn't get approved, and get feedback on what you should be submitting next time. So we're really excited about that, and it's super helpful, especially whatever size municipality you are. And with that, I'll turn it over to Paul.
Yeah, along the lines that Keem brought up, the vulnerable assessment doesn't have the wind and setup for coastal, so we'll be crosswalking the two. We have the updated FEMA maps that we went through an appeal process, and now we're expecting to get a letter of determination in June. They become effective in December if that timeline holds. The dispute on the results were that in the Lake Worth Lagoon, not on the beach, but in the lagoon, we're seeing rises above 4 feet higher than the previous studies. And the scenario that did that was a wind from the north to the south, pulling water into the port inlet and then it being trapped in the south end of the lagoon. We agreed that that could happen, but the magnitude was anomalous in our opinion. But the maps will be finalized, and just be aware of that. We'll make sure that if you look at the vulnerability assessment, you understand there's a different scenario too with the wind and setup, so they're not the same thing.
Thank you, Paul.
Good morning, Nancy Gassman, City of Fort Lauderdale. A lot of great work going on in the area. Feels like we're doing lots of the same sorts of things. We're working on a watershed management plan to improve our CRS. We're working on a net zero plan. We're finalizing our vulnerability assessment. We're very concerned at the city regarding the current predictions for the upcoming hurricane season, which indicates that we are at a high likelihood to have an above average season. So we're watching that very carefully. We're already experiencing high tides that exceed our threshold for flooding, which doesn't normally happen in the spring, and we saw that over the Memorial Day weekend, that we had tides that were higher than some of our roadways and created some impacts. I think one of the big things to report for the city of Fort Lauderdale is that we've announced a new program called Fortify Lauderdale, and it's mainly focused on our stormwater program. We already had 8 neighborhoods that were designed for multi-million-dollar improvements. We've completed 2 of those. The Edgewood and the River Oaks neighborhood is almost complete. We've started the Doers and the Dorsey Riverbend neighborhoods. We're accelerating the timelines for the other neighborhoods that have already been designed, and we've initiated phase 2 of the Stormwater Master Plan to include 17 additional neighborhoods for advanced stormwater modeling. So that we suspect that that's going to end up, the second phase is going to be about $500 million investment, and the initial phase is probably about $290 million at this point. At least one of the neighborhoods that we predicted would be about a $30 million project. The costs have come in at $90 million. And that we expect that every single one of those neighborhoods is going to require some sort of a pump or more than one pump in order to provide the additional level of service to address flooding, not for just today's conditions, but for future conditions. The city has commemorated the April 2023 26-inch rain event, and we have recently acknowledged that we have to demolish our city hall because of the impacts of that event. And the last thing I want to report on is that we worked with the Urban Land Institute to develop a set of criteria for determining whether you should elevate your roads or not. Learning some lessons from Miami Beach, and we're trying to work with the commission once that report comes out to set a criteria and a policy for road elevation throughout the city to address flooding primarily from tidal impacts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It would be good to circulate that study if you can on the road elevation. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you,
Hello,
Meenakshi Chaba from the Everglades Foundation. I'm the Ecosystem and Resilience Scientist. No updates, but I do want to commend this meeting where we touched upon, I'm looking forward, first of all, to the draft report and where you touched upon the importance of nature-based solutions. I also look forward to the critical piece that Everglades restoration offers to provide resilience, flood resilience to the entire Southeast Florida. So that piece has to be underscored, I feel. But great work on the C9 canal. It was great to see. And also the mention of multiple drivers of flood risk. So many a time we ignore those, and I was happy to hear that. We were all happy to hear that this recognition is important not only for the projects that districts that does, but other local as well as federal projects in the area. The importance of compound flooding is extremely important, and we have, I think, we're all on the path to becoming an exemplar in this risk management field. So it's great to hear all the updates from you all. Thank you.
Mary McNicholas, representing Indian Trail Improvement District. Again, I can't thank you all enough for hosting this. Carolina, it's probably getting old, listen to these accolades, but you'll have to endure. Thank you so much for having these, for hosting it, for providing the collaboration, also the support, and thank you, Drew and Dave. One thing that I just want to mention, not on a huge technical angle, but specifically, we have some pretty good news that the construction commencement notice has been issued for the J.W. Corbett levee, the Phase 2 system, and half the people that are, or at least several of the people that are in this room are to be thanked so much. Paul Litton, you can hide over there, but you've been incredibly important. Carolina, Dave, Drew, I can't thank you all enough. This was a project, for any of y'all that don't know, that had gone on for 12 to 14 years, I think. Who's counting? But in the last 2 years, made a priority, and as a result, the Northwestern Palm Beach County is definitely going to be a great recipient. Realizing that this project isn't going to move dirt, as Paul says, probably until the end of wet season, we still can take a note and make sure that we pat ourselves on the back for that one. Great collaboration, multi-jurisdictional group, and that's about what I have for Indian Trail Improvement. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Mary. Peggy, happy to have you here.
Thank you. Penny Redford, Climate Change and Resilience Manager for the City of West Palm Beach. Yeah, I'm going to be repeating some of the things that everyone else has said. We are working on multiple Resilient Florida projects, a lot with stormwater hardening and others. Our vulnerability assessment should be completed later this summer, so we're looking forward to that. I also wanted to just sort of chime in on the CRS. Of course, we're working on our CRS, everyone is. And to Jim's comments about, you know, how do we take what all is being done here and somehow get those points and have it reflect, because we're all in the same boat with that. And literally, that's so bad that I said boat. I'm sorry, but we really are. So also, we're working, one of the Resilient Florida grant projects is a seawall pilot that we are kicking off now, that's going to show different types of solutions to the seawall. And to go along with that, we are in the process of receiving another Resilient Florida grant from last year on developing a resilient waterfront plan. So for our city, we have about 10 miles or so of waterfront on the intracoastal, and trying to look at how we can coordinate those efforts and not just piecemeal it, is sort of a dream I've had for a little while, so that we're really maximizing, you know, our resources. We have been doing some other nature-based solutions, just are completing a tree canopy assessment and strategy update, been doing a good bit of tree planting. Obviously, we know how hot it's been, and looking at that heat factor as well as stormwater uptake. And then finally, we are working to finalize our Rethink Paradise. It's a climate change and sustainability plan. We're updating it since 2017. And then the last thing I'd say is that we received a grant from Bloomberg to engage youth being between 15 and 24. And that is to look at our climate action plan, come up with some activities and solutions that the youth could do, and then we will be sub-granting grants of $1,000 to $5,000 to the youth to implement those activities. So they do need a sponsor group. We're not going to hand over $5,000 to a 15-year-old, but we're open for that, and the activity has to take place within the city of West Palm Beach. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, Sandy.
Sandra Bogan. I'm the Resilience Navigator with St. Lucie County. And like a lot of us around this table, we are in the middle of doing our community-wide vulnerability assessment throughout the whole county, as well as we have CDBG funding that will help us create an adaptation plan in the longer term. We've been doing a lot of focus on the St. Lucie River, as you heard a little bit, with the South Florida Water Management District doing the flood protection level of service. We're also working with the Army Corps of Engineers. We're in the middle of a feasibility study that will be followed by about $10 million investment in restoration on the St. Lucie River. The river itself is an impaired waterway based on historical, the same old story we hear about, right? Historical dredging and channelization, and then urbanization around the river, but very flood-prone areas, a lot of choke points in the river. So all of the work that's going into the H&H studies, as well as the feasibility studies and restoring parts of the river, are really important. The St. Lucie River and estuary is a regional critical asset between St. Lucie County and Martin County. Another focus that we have is in our northeast district of the county. A lot of wells. We're working on a water treatment plant. We got some funding to drill the wells for the Upper Florida and Aquifer. We're putting in the pipes, and we're still just trying to move that along because we have extreme pressure, development pressure in that area. And a lot of the water is being taken by the surface aquifer. So the river and potable water, wastewater treatment plant expansion, that's a big part of what we're doing for resilience.
Excellent. Thank you, Cindy, again. Brandon.
All right. So once again, Brandon Moody, Water Quality Manager with Charlotte County. I'm the substitute for Claire Jubb, who usually has the pleasure of attending these. And I appreciate the opportunity to get a chance to kind of listen about all of the fantastic things going on over on this side of the state. It's extraordinarily impressive. If I were to kind of summarize our efforts, it'd be really continuing under the guise of capacity, capability, and knowledge building. I started Charlotte County 3 years ago. The county did not have a comprehensive water quality monitoring program, does not have a flow or water level monitoring program, and we've been slowly building towards filling in those gaps. We hopefully, assuming that everything goes well with the budget, we should be getting $1.25 million from the state to implement a flow and water level monitoring system for the county, so we can really start building that database and our understanding of how our systems are responding to rain events. We just submitted for review a watershed master plan, which has the positive benefit of spurring further review of other older plans like our stormwater master plan and whatnot. And so these things kind of snowball on top of one another, and that's certainly a very positive benefit of that effort, apart from the original stated purpose of that, which was simply to enhance our CRS rating, which is certainly important to our citizenry. Beyond that, like others have mentioned, we're also continuing to navigate through the hazard mitigation grant process. We do have a couple of CDRZ communities, so just like all of you, or many of you, we're working through those same processes. The Coastal and Heartland National Estuary Partnership has kindly given some of their budget to us to pursue our vulnerability assessment. We invested most of our money initially from the state to build the models that would go into feeding the vulnerability assessment, so now's the time we're actually compiling the assessment itself. So huge thanks to them for helping to make that happen. We're working with them through that process, and I think that covers the high points.
Thank you, Brandon. Jennifer, good to see you here.
Thank you. Jennifer Hecker, I represent the Coastal and Heartland National Estuary Partnership. We're part of the US EPA National Estuary Program. but we cover the central and southwest portion of the state. And I just had a couple of updates. First, I just want to thank Carolina and the district for this amazing meeting today. It's always a pleasure to come to these and listen to these online to learn about all the good work that you all are doing and how we can support your efforts with the federal funding that we receive. One of the things I wanted to touch on really quickly is we held the fourth annual Southwest Florida Climate Summit since our last meeting. And if anyone's interested in any of the videos, we had actually some very esteemed speakers like Jim here, who gave us incredible knowledge at that event. And so we have saved that in videos that are available on our website and on our YouTube channel at chnep.org. We are right now planning for the 2025 Southwest Florida Climate Summit. It's going to be held in Punta Gorda, Florida on February 19th and 20th. So if you are interested, we'd ask you to save those dates and plan on joining us then. Also, if you're interested in presenting, and we welcome people from all over the state, we really like to cross-pollinate and hear from other entities about what ideas we could be using in Southwest Florida to further resiliency. So we just opened a call for abstracts that's available on our website, chnep.org. So encourage you all to consider presenting at this two-day regional event. We're asking for those abstracts by August 1st. The next thing I wanted to quickly touch on is the comprehensive vulnerability assessment. So Brandon mentioned that we are funding Charlotte counties, but we're also partially funding 9 other counties in our service area. So we have been working with those. We have so far kicked off CVA work in Charlotte, Lee, Polk, Highlands, DeSoto, and Hardy counties. And we have a few more being lined up to come into the queue shortly as we receive monies from the bipartisan infrastructure law. So I'm sure you all have heard about that. We're getting quite a chunk of money that is annually appropriated to us over a 5-year period that we are using to help assist counties and cities in our area. And then the last thing I wanted to touch upon is we have a data hub website called the CHNEP Water Atlas. So if you are looking for data in any of the 10 counties in Central and Southwest Florida, this is an incredible resource. We actually just redeveloped the site. It took about 5 years to break it apart and rebuild it. But we basically cover the Mayaca piece, Caloosahatchee and Estero River, as well as the coastal estuaries from Lemon Bay and Sarasota County down to Estero Bay and Lee County. So we have about 800 water body pages now available, and basically it's taking all publicly accessible data from local, state, and federal government and putting it in one place so you get a holistic picture of what's going on in those waterways. And we now have 4 interactive climate mappers on each of those pages focused on water quality, hydrology, fish, wildlife, habitat, and climate change data. So we are adding, as climate data becomes available, we're going to keep layering it in to this data hub website where everyone can access it. And it does have some analytical tools that crunch some of the data and give you some pretty interesting things like water quality dashboard that tells you how you're faring against the standards for that water body and that sort of thing. And I think that's all I wanted to cover, but I did want to, before I pass it on, just mention that Jim, who has been a resiliency pioneer and mentor to many of us, is apparently retiring in September. So before I pass the mic on, I just want to thank him for his many years of service and just really welcome you to give some parting wisdom to us. Thank you.
That's why he asked to be the last.
I love getting the last word. I was thinking about it as we were around the table in this room, and I want to talk about that. But we're doing a lot in the county. You guys get sick of hearing about what's happening in Miami-Dade counties. I do want to highlight what Tim Dyson talked about as the Back Bay study. It's every study that the Corps does is unique to the geography, and that's true here. But the Corps is trying to change. They are really trying to change the way feasibility studies are done, and that incremental progress. The 3x3 study that became the 6x8 study. We did a feasibility study in 9 months, and That's not going to be the standard practice, but in that is embedded things that we learned because this region did Everglades. And so the Corps was willing to go off the standard practice and say, let's authorize programs about nature-based solutions, not projects, not measures, all that Corps speak stuff, but programs that were based on adaptive management, the same stuff that we learned in Everglades. And we had the ability to do that because we were in South Florida, and we had that, their risk level was less. So we have program authorizations and project authorizations. It's worth looking at just for that. I want to go back to the reference to the Central and Southern Flood Project. That is the backbone of civilized South Florida. The landscape did not look like it does today before we had that system. And it gets, you know, you drive over the road and you see the sign with the alligator and there's another canal, but we just wouldn't be here on the East Coast without the Central and Southern Flood Project, the secondary canals, the tertiary canals, all the things. It is the backbone of Everglades restoration. It's basically, Everglades restoration was a sub-program of the original flood project. So now we're going to take a look at it. It is excruciating to do the 216 project. It's painful, but we need to move towards the comprehensive plan and do the same groundbreaking, I mean worldwide groundbreaking that Everglades restoration did. We need to do it for that project, because if we do it right, the way you guys approach things now, it'll be another hallmark. Lastly, yes, this is my last meeting. I'm going to be retiring. I've been coming to this room for probably 30-plus years, and I've seen the district go through all sorts of changes. Back when we had the RAC, you know, I don't know if anybody here on the RAC? We almost had fistfights, you know, and legal battles, and it was, you know, so what is evolved is this kind of setting that accomplishes so much in terms of communication. But what really I see that I didn't see 30 years ago was a district that's responsive to the things that they're asked to do locally. And I think that's, I credit the staff, I credit the board, and that relationship is really evolved in a positive way. So you guys need to keep coming to these meetings and telling them what they're not doing right, and tell them never roll back to tax rate. Never roll back to tax rate. We need their money, the money that we send them, we need it. Stay here and then send it back to us. But it's been a pleasure to work in this environment, and it's really some great things happening, so keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. You have been providing extreme support to the work that we have been doing here from my day one here and even before I even joined the district, of course, to all the staff here. Thank you very much for all you have done. And I will truly miss collaborating closely with you. I hope we can engage in some post-retirement efforts. Okay, so we are closing. We just have 2 more minutes. Oh, I almost missed. Yvette, do we have any public comment?
And no public comments.
Anybody on the audience ask any final question or comment? Okay, if not, just 2 quick slides to adjourn here. Again, thank you very, very much for all the conversations, for being here, for the updates that we got here. It's always great to see that we are kind of walking together on this path on many of the initiatives, and this is what we need to do to be able to get informed and better respond to the many opportunities that are out there. I think that's the right way to do. So let me try to go, yeah, thank you. So this is just a link again to our, I'm sure everybody in this room is subscribed, but just to subscribe to our district communications. And then we have, we always share a survey with you. On the next slide, I have a summary of some of the responses that we receive. Again, we are here to hear from you if we need to improve on anything else. We do have some responses already that we got. So FD, PDM, and DOT send us comments. We have Miami-Dade County, City of Boynton Beach. Thank you very much. One consulting team as well. So comments in general about this meeting, about the work that we have been doing, suggestions for future topics. So here is a list of some of those topics that were suggested. We're definitely going to be considering that as we plan for future meetings. If you have any additional recommendation, don't hesitate, just submit your input. Thank you very much for being here today, and the meeting is adjourned.